can turn off my OBS. And that means I can actually switch my camera to my good camera through Discord. That's cool. What I will say is that the mics are coming through on your stream.
Okay. Yeah, I know they're coming through. This is just pre-show ramble on soundcheck while I run the music in the background. Because we don't really jump into like another like a minute or two. Well, actually about 45 seconds according to my phone. How do you know I was about to tell you? I know, thank you, Tim. So I need to get the transition ready. Get the Stinger transition up and running. Alright. I need to kill the music for the Stinger to play. Alright, we are loaded up. As soon as it hits the 7 o'clock, I'm gonna bring this bitch home. Alright, Stinger, let's go. Here we go. All right. Welcome to the Drunk Tank, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, that Stinger was made up by Chris, my co-host. Welcome to the first episode of the Drunk Tank. I didn't know what to call it, so we just called it Is This Thing On? Here's how this is gonna work. I am Dox Ryan, the man up in the corner. That's Chris C90.
Hello.
So the Drunk Tank is a podcast brainchild of that crazy Scotsman over there. We're going to talk about some topics. We're going to have a couple rambles. Might have some culture shock moments. We're going to talk about what we're drinking during the podcast. And down below on the bar there, you'll see what we're discussing. Chris will have a ramble. We've got audio transitions for those all. This is a audience participation podcast. If you do put something in the chat, we will address it. We're going to go for about 2 to 2.5 hours. Feel free to make comments. We will get to them as we go on. There may be topics you are uncomfortable with. Maybe not this episode, maybe this episode. At any point, if you're feeling sensitive or triggered or in any way, shape, or form uncomfortable, by all means, I haven't even started drinking yet. mute the stream until you see the change in the now discussing, and that will let you know that we've moved off that topic. You can catch it on my channel, and then once Chris gets his gear up and running, it will be simulcast on his channel, so you can get his perspective as well. So first things first, we'll make a quick introduction, as I did all of the jumbly setup in a row. So Chris, my man, introduce yourself. Tell the lovely people what's going on.
Well, there's not much to really tell. I am Chris. I am from Scotland. So if you can't understand me, it's not because of your hearing. It is just me and my accent, and plus adding in alcohol. It's going to make things a lot more worse to kind of understand, but we'll try and get you through it. Yeah, we're literally, as Doc said, this is just a kind of bullshittery of random topics that we've kind of came across in the last week that we want to touch on, get opinions on. So as Doc's mentioned, if you've got an opinion on the matter, chime in, let us know how you think about it. And
keep it respectful though, or we'll ban your ass.
Yeah, Tim does have a hammer, so don't piss us off.
Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt. Keep going, Chris. You're doing great.
No, I think that was everything I was going to say.
Is it? So what part of Scotland are you from for those, uneducated fools? Or do you not want to say?
Well, no, I'll say. I am from the glorious city of Glasgow.
Glasgow!
or
Right.
Glasgow if you're from here. Um, but we'll try and keep the accent as thin as possible. But again, no promises because it can come on thick once I start getting into a passionate rant, which we will be going into.
Don't worry, I'm fluent in drunkies. I grew up in bars. Scottish ain't much different.
Well, it's a good trait to have. Good trait to have.
It is, it is. As you guys know, if you've been here at the channel, I am Dox Ryan, the eponymous weirdo, and this is our bar for the drunk tank. Chris is a member of my RPG crew. He's a good friend of mine, and he's the one who proposed this podcast idea. And I was like, dope, I've done podcasts in the past. I'm all down for doing another one. So that's how this brain hatchery happened. You all know my shit. I do a lot of different stuff on this channel. Chris will do a bunch of stuff on his channel once we get him up and running. So first things first, every podcast we start from here on out, this is going to air every Monday. And then some Sundays to accommodate when we start taking on guests. So first things first, opening rounds. What are you drinking, buddy?
I am currently drinking a lovely bottle of Stone's original green ginger wine.
Ooh, I haven't had that. Give me the
It's
lowdown. What is
actually
it?
quite enjoyable. It's basically it's well, it's not a wine to start with. It's like a, I don't know if you guys have like Pims or anything like that.
Yes, we do have Pims.
Oh, it's pretty much like that, except for it's ginger, so it's green ginger.
Okay.
And it's kind of you can drink it straight, but it does give you a kind of recipe of mix it with lemonade, and it has a nice little fruity taste. So it's one of those drinks that it can be lethal because it does taste really, really nice, and
Creeps up
it
on
is
you.
just like drinking juice. And you'll just sit and drink it, and then realize you're 2 bottles down in the middle of a Super Bowl Sunday, with wondering where your life has led you to this point.
Yeah. Now I've had Pims, but it's rare over here. I used to be a bartender, so I'm pretty familiar with it. But when you posted it in a document, even I was like, I have no idea what the hell that is.
Yeah, it's
So,
quite a. I didn't actually know about it until about maybe a year ago, maybe
mhm.
a year and a half. And then it was just a kind of random. I'd got bored of the kind of whiskey, I'd got bored of the vodka, I'd got bored of the beer and cider, and I thought I need something new just to test out, and that was the winner.
Mhm. Nice,
So
nice, nice. I think that's dope. Now, we said this opening round segment as sort of kind of a review preview thing. Well, the so it's like ginger. It's like a ginger wine or like a ginger beer kind of thing. You said.
it's kind of like if you mix it with lemonade, it does come out as quite a kind of ginger beer. Not, I don't think it's as strong as ginger beer because ginger beer I don't quite enjoy, but this just seems to. It's much more of a. It's like a subtle ginger. It doesn't like kind of punch you in the face like a ginger beer, like a Krabby's or something like that would do. It just seems to have a much more mellowed out ginger, so you can just enjoy it as a kind of like a nighttime drink where you just want to chill out, mellow, watch a movie, listen to some music. It's not a kind of creep up, punch you in the face, you're going
Right.
to ruin your life kind of drink. So
And what for those that are interested in maybe getting their hands on it, what are we looking at price point?
well, here you can get they have like you can get a kind of branded one from different stores, which comes round about the £5 mark for a bottle. The Stones comes in at about £6.50, so it's not a massively expensive drink. It is just everything around it just sounds chill, enjoyable.
So like $12 for us here,
Yeah,
roughly.
I could not tell you what the conversion rate is,
Yeah,
but
British pounds like maybe dollar and a half, so like $11-12 for us here in the
yeah.
states. Cool. I'll definitely have to check it out. Like I said, I've had Pims before, but I haven't had the ginger wine. My opening round, because I didn't have a chance to grab beer because I had a crazy day. I am busting out the last of the Vikings blood, baby. Let's go. Right? So, for those of you that are unfamiliar with Vikings blood, it's a mead out of Denmark from a Denmark distillery. This mead though is different. Mead tends to be a honey wine or a honey drink, but this
Yeah.
mead has been infused with hops and hibiscus flowers, and it's done with the what they call the winter distillation. Basically, it's left outside, ice forms, they pour off the booze into the bottle, rinse, repeat until the flavors condense, bottle it up. Nice ceramic bottle. Look at that. I mean, that's fucking pretty, right?
Oh yeah, it's it's a nice
Unfortunately, though, this is a bit more pricey than your Stones, man. This will run you about 26 bucks. 26 bucks for 750 mils. But it's fucking great. Got a real intense flavor forward in the mouth. I sort of you get that honey forward, then you get the spice notes, then the hibiscus and the hops kind of come in on the back end. So if you like a
Right.
if you like a sweet sipping thing but not overly sweet, I'd definitely check out the Vikings Blood. But like it is going in. You are gonna pay a premium for it because it is a little bit on the higher end of boozing and whatnot. But it's definitely worth it. I've had that bottle for about 2 months now, and I just drink a little 8 ounces at a time, and I'm pretty much good. So the other thing I was going to talk about is my drinking mug, busting it out. First episode of the podcast, baby. Custom made flagon for my mead. Got my little Death Star ice cube in there to mellow out my drink. So I mean, it is what it is, man. So I'm definitely gonna have to check out that green wine though. So, but
Oh yeah, it's definitely worth. But I think again with your Vikings Blood, I've read up on it and stuff like that. Like it does sound like one of like every review I've heard of it, the cost to taste matches. It's not one of those ones where you'll buy it and then go, this was not worth it. It matches everything, and it just if it's what you're looking for, it's perfect.
yeah, and I've had experience with mead before. There's a local meadery in my state here in the States that does a really phenomenal set of meads, and it's like $12 a bottle for their stuff. But I saw this on a YouTube channel called How to Drink. He was making a Warhammer 40K inspired drink using Vikings Blood, and the drink he was making, he called it Fenrisian Ale, based off of the Space Wolves chapter in Warhammer 40K. So I was like, "Fuck, man, I gotta get me some of that Vikings Blood, bro." Sure enough, it was in my local. We've got a local delicatessen and like alcohol importer. They got like everything except for that Stag's Breath that I've been looking for.
Oh yeah, we'll get you that anyway. We'll get it.
Yeah. We'll figure that out. But they had it on the shelf, and my girlfriend was like, "Oh, you've been talking about this for a while, so, and you've had a rough week, so just snatched it up. Didn't even know she was gonna get it for me, and brought it home. I was like, God damn." So I mean, it's good shit. I mean, I like it. She's like, that shit's dangerous. Like your Stones, man. You you stand up and you just get smacked in the mouth by it if you're drinking enough. There's a meadery out here I need to introduce you to. We'll need to ship some to Chris as well. Woo, Tim making plans. I like it.
I'm right up for that. I mean, the box that I'm going to be sending out to you, to everybody, is slowly growing now that I'm having to get the Dutch stuff put into the box as well now.
You're just a lovable dude, you know that?
We'll need to get that out quite soon. I mean, obviously, the Dutch stuff will take a wee bit longer because my plan is once we can travel, I want to go back across and get the real stuff because, as you've seen in your box, it's the generic stuff that people actually don't like. What you were bringing out, I've tried, but it's not like straight away with like the likes of the strip waffles. They also have little cakes are called geweldig, and it's like little pastries with like it's basically like an apple turnover, but they're just so much better. Like I don't know what they do. Like they must make it with love or something, but they just whatever they do with it works. Just they're nothing like I've had here especially, like our pastries do not match up to them, and there's
Right.
a lot of stuff like that are just you'll never get unless you've actually been in Holland. So I'll definitely be getting them out to you.
Oh yeah, Chris will make it out to Portland. We'll get his ass out there eventually. But what Chris is talking about is I featured on another Twitch channel doing a Universal Yums box for my daughter and my ex-wife. They do content creation, and they asked me to feature on one of their tasting boxes, and it was all right. Problem was, it didn't seem like the Netherlands to me, man. It was like, I was like, come on, you had one thing that I couldn't pronounce.
Yeah.
Stop with
Yes,
that
I
shit.
did. I felt the same thing. As like most of the stuff, it was gums that you could pretty much get anywhere. Like we used to have licorice gums. I'm sure you guys have licorice
Yeah,
gums.
yeah,
There
I can't
was
stand
like
black licorice.
to me, it was like as much as it was fun watching you kind of try the stuff and the reactions, especially with the licorice. Which Docs, you need to man up a wee bit there.
Kiss my
But
ass.
other than that, oh no, it was the sour watermelons that flogged you for some reason.
Bro, I
Like,
didn't know it was sour. I wasn't expecting it. It took me totally off guard. It was like the art on the wrapper gave no indication that that was sour. So like when I
what I will say to chat right now is that it literally did say sour on the packet. It was just in Dutch.
yeah, and my Dutch is garbage. Like I can cuss in 37 different languages. I just can't speak or read any of them. So
But
yeah, that was interesting.
yeah.
So so do you want to transition into the main two topics?
Oh yeah, we could go
All right.
right into it. I mean, there's only one major big topic that we have to talk about right now.
Well, yeah, we'll hit that one. We'll hit the big one first. So those of you that are unaware, the unofficial national holiday for us, we Americans, happened last night in the shape of Super Bowl 55. Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City got shout out to Kansas City, good barbecue, hella good barbecue, and that's about it. And then Tampa Bay, the Buccaneers, Tampa Bay, strip clubs and Cubanos. That's all about I know about Tampa Bay. We're talking American football. In case when we'll run this as a rerun tomorrow, so UK and European audiences and whatnot. We're talking American football, and not rugby, because Chris will be like, the Americans are pussies, which pads.
Yeah, well, you wear pads and helmets, like.
Dude, that's because we hit harder than you do.
We learned that it was not true when I showed you how real sport is.
Hey,
But we'll go on.
as real as it gets, bitch.
Right, we'll go on to your hardcore ballet sport.
So, all right, let's talk about it. Super Bowl 55 pitted Tom Brady, the undisputed GOAT, best quarterback ever to play the game, against a lot of people who are calling the future or the baby GOAT, Patrick Mahomes, right? That was the big buildup. It was the buildup between the GOAT and the future GOAT. Now, Chris, seeing as how you're across the pond there, I kind of want to get your impressions of the Super Bowl and what you thought before we get into like the dirty details of what the game was.
Well, obviously here the build-up is nothing compared to what it is over you guys. I mean, over here it's a struggle to actually find anybody that's actually watched the game enough to even know the rules. Like I had my friend up last night that had said, "Oh yeah, I've been a fan for years and years and years," and then it turned out that he couldn't even tell me what team he actually supported. Now I've supported the Patriots since 1998. That's always been my team since our Channel 4 started showing the NFL games. So that
Why
was
the
how I got
Patriots?
into it.
Why the Patriots?
I think it was the first game I'd seen was the Patriots versus the Dolphins in 1998.
Okay.
And it was just
Patriots were trash back then.
I couldn't tell you what it was about them, but it was just, to me, they just seemed like the epitome of the NFL. It was that team that everybody would always talk trash on, but they never really went away. They would never go away. They always seemed to get those plucky results where they just would fight and fight. Even when they were getting absolutely dismantled, they weren't a team to give up. And I
Yeah,
think that just kind of resonated. And then from then on, the story's been written of the Patriots up until this season. The Patriots basically ran the NFL. So
yeah. I think in 1998 is when they introduced those new unis, the blue with the red and the white, the silver helmets. I think that was the first year they dropped those new unis, and everybody was like, "Oh shit, the Pats are legit." And I think that's when I think that's right before Belichick came on, or that might have been his first year as the Pats head coach, and he had Drew Bledsoe, because Tom Brady didn't come on until like 99, 2000. So
I'm sure it
it
was
was like
2000, 2001 he came
yeah.
in, so
So they
this
had
was
Drew
still before.
Bledsoe. They had Drew Bledsoe, who was a respected veteran who played in the league for a long time before going to the Patriots with Bill Parcells. And then Belichick came in after Parcells. But I think, like you said, the Patriots had just dropped those new unis, and they literally look like the quintessential new NFL, the new style uniforms, the new helmets.
Yeah.
They were they were on the edge of replacing the Cowboys as sort of the face of the NFL in '98. So I could
Yeah.
see why they would export the Patriots as the sort of like the picture of the league.
Yeah,
But
that
I
was pretty
remember,
much it. That was pretty much how I started with the sport. And then again, like over here, we had a kind of American football league. It was like a European league. I think I've spoke to you about
NFL
it
Europe was
before.
dope.
And it was
NFL
like you
Europe
had
was
like
dope.
the Scottish Claymores, and
Yep.
you had like the Amsterdam Rhinos and the Frankfurt Gazelles and stuff like
Frankfurt
that.
Galaxy.
Not quite names like you guys,
Yep.
but I mean, they played at the National Stadium every few months, and we used to get the free tickets with the schools. It was
Right.
always like the students would get like kind of free tickets, so like we'd go down with my dad and my brother and stuff like that, watch the Claymores play, and that was just a continuation of
Right.
me enjoying the sport. I mean, like there's not many sports that I don't not necessarily follow religiously. Like there's a lot of sports where I couldn't actually tell you, but there's very few sports that I couldn't watch and get excited for. Like the NBA, I could not tell you anything about basketball, but I can watch the game and feel the passion and the vibe and the buzz and get excited about it. So because like sport, the likes of the Super Bowl is the epitome of a lot. I mean, it's not quite the World Cup, but
The World Cup is fire. I'll admit it. I love the World Cup.
so but I can understand from our obviously the World Cup is a lot bigger for us, being kind of more football or soccer kind of world over here, but knowing that sort of passion and love is what you guys have for the Super Bowl, you can feel it. You can feel it when you're talking to just anybody that follows it. As soon as you start, it's an immediate, not necessarily a debate, but it's just an immediate, you just start firing back and forward, and it's a great conversation you're able to have. So the Super Bowl epitomised that.
Yeah, the Super Bowl, the evolution of the Super Bowl has become an interesting thing because I grew up football was life. Like I grew up in the Midwest, Chicago, Green Bay, fucking Detroit, Minnesota, that triangle. So the NFC North, right? The NFC Central back in the day. That was the smash mouth, kick each other in the face, fucking punch each other in the shit and go division. You had the West and the East, then you had the Central, and the West Coast was flashy, throw the ball around the field, look nice. Then you had the East Coast, which had the history, right? But the NFC Central back in the day when I was a kid, that was like just a fuck your world up division. So I grew up. My mom was a Bears fan. You know, Walter Payton, Gale Sayers, Doug Flutie, Jim McMahon. You know, the '85 Bears, Mike Ditka, Dick Butkus, right? So I grew up watching it ever since I was a kid. Like every Sunday, like my mom would watch football, or her boyfriend and her would watch football. So it was kind of ingrained in me. Like I wanted to play quarterback. I did play quarterback in street leagues and intramurals teams and whatnot. But football is, like you said, football is like the World Cup to you guys. Like especially the Super Bowl, because everything stops. Like everything stops. Like Super Bowl weekend is a $1 billion industry in this country. Like restaurants, stores, merchandise shops, like like I said, it is the unofficial national holiday of the US. And anybody who tells you different is fucking lying. And they're jealous. But yeah, so I mean, football to me, like I've gone to pro games, and I'll tell you right now, watch it on TV. You get better.
I've made the same thing. Like, I mean, I've went to like the NFL have a contract with kind of like the UK, where I think we get like 3-year games. The teams fly over to us and they play at Wembley. I've been to a game. Yeah, I've been to a game just because, well, it's a rare occasion that I ever get to go to an NFL game. And as much as that game was a great game and a great atmosphere and just beer, I couldn't help but think it was like, it's hard to time it because you can't sound British without putting down the Americans. And I can't help but think it's the kind of British like crowd audience that makes the games that much better, because like I would rather watch it on TV. Same way like our football, I'd rather watch my football team on TV, but there's just nothing quite like going to the actual stadium. And I don't know if it's just like, I mean, straight away kind of the UK and American and their chants are just stymied as well. There's like you go online, you look up memes for the audience. Like our chants are well concocted to classical songs where we tell you just how we shagged your mum. But whereas in the American style, there's a lot more PC and kind of let's have fun and let's enjoy. Whereas for us, it's like we're going to make sure you cry.
Yeah, over here, like I've been to a couple games, and you're right that there's something to the pageantry and the atmosphere. But like over here, you know, there's a lot of people are like, well, let's get beer and hot dogs and cheer and stomp our feet. There's no the crowd interaction is not like chanting. It's not like you guys do. We do like, "We Will Rock You." That's like our big one, right? The Queen song, right? Or we'll do the fucking wave, or like "Who Let the Dogs Out," right? But we don't give it to other sections like you guys do. Yeah. Because we don't want to, like, because you don't know if those motherfuckers are hammered off their ass and if they're going to come over here and start a fight in front of your kid. Like, you don't want to do that shit. So the sporting event atmosphere here is a lot more like, oh, let's have beer and hot dogs and talk shit to the players, not to the fans.
Yeah. I think the difference that we've got is with the whole, those guys are drunk, they might come over and start fighting in front of our kids. Here, it's a bit more like, oh, would you look at that? Our kids are now getting involved with them and they're going and beating them up now. So I think that's where the difference is that we really don't care. And even at that, like, it's the funniest thing is like, and it's the same, like this goes right across the board. It's not just a UK, USA kind of thing. But the one thing that I do love is like you watch like the Super Bowl and the lead up and that kind of stuff, and it's like as much as there's like talk and trash talk and all that kind of stuff between players and fans and all that kind of stuff. So one of the things that we see over here so much is in the lead up to the Super Bowl game, the amount of fans that turn up in the car park, whip out their barbecue grills, and everybody just
Fucking
like,
tailgating, baby.
yeah, that's it. And it's like, that's what we've kind of like. You can see it here as well. As much as you can see our fans will shout at the other fans, shout at the players, shout at the time, and all that kind of stuff. When it comes down to it, there is a unity. It's like we'll sit and time with this and that. But see if you were to turn around to any football fan and say, "Oh, football's a pussy sport. You should go and do golf. You should go and do F1. You should go and do thing." No matter what team those fans support, they could be the biggest rivals and hate each other. They will unite and beat you down, and then
Yeah,
we'll
that
then
don't
go
happen
back
here.
and start picking each other's head in again. Like, as soon as you start messing from an outside, it's like, no, we will beat you up first, then we'll go back and start kicking each other. So,
Yeah, like,
but it's just a amazing thing to see.
you see that in the tailgate, right? You see, like in the football stadium matches, you see that in the tailgate. Like, opposing people will get together and share food and bullshit. But once it's game time, that's tribalism. Yeah. That's tribalism. Like,
oh yeah, exactly.
Opposing fans will like get into a fist fight. But if somebody says shit about someone else's team, they won't team up and whoop that dude's ass. Yeah. They'll wait and then one by one kick that dude's ass. They won't group up like you. They won't stop and be like, "Oh, you said shit about that guy's team or my team. We'll kick your." No, they'll be like, "Oh, you want to kick his ass first? Okay, I'll wait." So I think you got a point with like where we're a little more like tribalistic, and our team lines don't get crossed. Where, like you said, that unity is more for your thing. Unless you're talking tailgate, baby. Because when you're talking tailgate, it's a competition over here. Tailgating is just as important as the football game. Because the Kansas City fans want you to know that their ribs are better than them Philly fuckers cheesesteaks, bro. And if you come up to Wisconsin, brats and cheese ain't going to be whooped by fucking pizza or whatever you're bringing. You better bring some beer brats and some fucking hot-ass cheese, or you're getting bounced out the stadium, bro. So
that's where my worry is that if I ever come across, because when I do come across, one thing that I've always wanted to do is go to an NFL game, be it, I mean, the Super Bowl, when they're hitting it with $5,000 for a ticket. It's a bit of a put off, but right. But the problem that I've got is I would like to go and enjoy the football game. The issue that I'll have is I'll probably enjoy the tailgating a lot more and not care about going into the stadium. Like, we'll go tailgate, then we'll go back home, watch the game on the telly.
Right. And like I was saying, I prefer the TV presentation more than I prefer being at the stadium. Because it's $8 for a hot dog, bro. And your hot dog is trash. You want $7 for a watered down swill beer? You want $4 for a bottle of water? Suck my balls. No.
Well, that's one thing that you do actually have, is because in the UK we're not allowed to sell alcohol at football games.
Well, yeah, because you guys start riots.
Or any sport games, actually.
You guys start riots.
No, well, that's kind of true. But at the same time, like, the problem that there is we now have the problem of everybody goes and gets alcohol the night before and then gets drunk to show up to the game. So it would probably just be better just letting people drink in the stadium and they'll have 2 beers because you're charging £15 for them. Whereas now what's happened is everybody's went and got drunk, they've turned up and they've started fighting outside the stadium before they've even got in. So
they're bitching over whoever's black pudding's better.
Exactly. Like, and that's a big thing, like storming it all the way.
Yeah, and like the game itself, like the significance of the Super Bowl. People like live and die by the fucking just watching Twitter last night, bro. I was dying.
I've got one question for you based on the game and Twitter and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Well, let's get into it. All right, what do you got?
Do you think the referees made the game about themselves?
Nah, not at all. Which you bring that up because that's one of the points I wanted to hit. Let's look at it statistically. The Chiefs got hit with 11 penalties for 120 yards, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Buccaneers, I'm so used to saying the Patriots because of Tom Brady. The Buccaneers got hit with four penalties, right? Now, there were only 2 penalties that went against the Patriots that I'd have been like, nah, that's some bullshit. And it was the end zone pass that Tom Brady threw to Mike Evans that was like way the hell over his head.
Yeah.
And Mike Evans had no chance to catch it. And Honey Badger Tyrann Mathieu got hit with the PI, right? I think that one was sort of ticky-tack. And that one I wouldn't have thrown the flag on, right? And then there was the other flag where the other PI call again against Mike Evans, where the defender fell down, and as he was falling, he hit the back of Mike Evans' shoe. Mike Evans may have had a shot to catch that ball, but him slapping his heel like that.
I think what you have to remember is, these decisions can seem harsh, but at the end of the day, if the rule states a certain thing, you can, like, in that flash moment, the referee is not going to know if there was intent, if there was malice, if he was going to be able to reach that. Because for all we know, the cameras showed that he was not going to make that pass, and he fell, tripped him up by accident. But for all we know, in that moment, he could have had an amazing burst of acceleration and caught that pass.
He could have laid out
because Mike Evans is 6'5". Outside factors. Like, there's so many factors that, as a referee, you cannot, like, the harshness of it, if it's in that rule. Because, like, one of the arguments that we kept, like, I was making with my mate that came up, he didn't understand how the penalty went against the Buccaneers when it was unsportsmanlike conduct. And it was that whole bit when the guy went down, he turned over the ball, and he was like, oh, 2-2-2, and he got a penalty, right? And he was, I mean, that's just a stupid thing. And you're like, well, no, really, because it's been in the rule for, 50 years?
Yeah, taunting has been there for a while.
Yeah, like, you can't play the sport and get upset about the rules if the rules have been in place for, like, it's understandable if it's like, in football, we change rules, or we add rules and stipulations every year. So, like, we have new offside rules, we have new throw-in rules and stuff like that. And it's understandable if a player hasn't quite got that into their head. But when it's rules that have been there, like that rule, as far as I'm concerned, basically says, do not be an arsehole. That's right. It. And, like, he was arguing, well, that's what sport and competitive is all about. It's like, no. The fact is he beat that guy. That guy is already lost. To then turn around and rub it in his face just shows that you're actually, in fact, the loser, because you've managed to lower yourself below him. So, like, who is the loser here? And it was an annoying thing. And to hear so many of them thyming about how the referees made that game about themselves. Every single penalty that was given against the Chiefs was justified. They were breaking the rules. As much as you can turn around and go, it was a bit harsh, it was still against the rule. That was it. Like, they were holding, you can physically see them holding, and it's like, and why are you so shocked that the referees have gave against you holding? Like, well, one of the reasons that's like me running up and stabbing somebody, the police coming across, and me going, "Why are you arresting me?"
Well, one of the main complaints I saw, not to cut you off, one of the main complaints I saw about the holding call, the multiple holding calls, was a lot of those holding calls came away from the play. So everybody's like, well, it didn't affect the play, yada, yada, yada. Here's the problem, bro. If you make the comment that holding call didn't affect the play, Mike Evans, when that dude wrapped him up on the hips, that one holding call where Mike Evans ran to the dude, and the dude grabbed him around the hips because he ran past him, you're fucking up Mike Evans' route timing. Mike Evans could have ran an in route, or he could have wheeled out route that hold took him a half a second off the timing route. So if that opposite route on the strong side of the field was closed off, Brady's looking for the weak side wheel route, and if Evans is held for that split second, that does affect the play, bro. So you got to throw that holding flag. Now, here's the thing I'm going to say about the penalties, right? In American sports, all sports, and it's probably true for European sports too, when you get to the playoffs or you get to the championship games, the coaches and everybody will tell you, we're going to let you play. And what that means is, we're not usually going to throw the flag. We're going to let you get a little chippy. We're going to let you get away with a little more shit. Because we want the talent on the field to prevail. So we're not quick to throw the flag. We're not quick to call something we call in the regular season. The problem was that officiating crew wasn't having it. That officiating crew didn't let them play. And one of the things I had a problem with was, it's the Super Bowl, man. You got to let players play. Now, if it's egregious, call that shit all day. But like ticky-tack stuff like a hold, or like that PI in the end zone where the ball's way the hell over Mike Evans' head, don't throw that flag, right? Let them play. Let the players play. Let them have it a little bit. Let it get a little chippy, right? Makes for a better game. It shows you if the talent can overcome the chippiness, then the real team wins. Now, talking about unsportsmanlike conduct, did you see the flag that Tyrann Mathieu got, the unsportsmanlike conduct, for when he got up in Tom Brady's face?
Yeah.
And then Tom Brady ran his ass down and got in his shit. Tom Brady should have got a flag for that shit too. Because Tyrann Mathieu was jaw-jacking, right? And he said something that pissed Tom Brady off. And Tom Brady was like, oh, bitch, let's go. He chased Tyrann Mathieu down and got in Tyrann Mathieu's shit. That should have been offsetting unsportsmanlike conduct penalties.
But would that be considered as unsportsmanlike conduct, or should it be put down as instigating? Because if he's then defending, that's like turning around and saying that Tom Brady was walking off the pitch, some of the guys ran up behind him and sucker punched him, and then Tom Brady's chased him down, sucker punched him back, but Tom Brady then gets thrown out the game. Well, for basically defending themselves.
The problem is, like, football doesn't have instigating. Hockey,
that's something that you should.
Hockey has instigating. You get 2 minutes for instigating. Yeah. In hockey, you have 2 minutes for instigating. Football doesn't have that. You just have unsportsmanlike conduct. So when Tom the thing is Tyrann Mathieu bumped his gums at Tom Brady and then ran off, right? It wasn't a big issue, right? Tom Brady ran and chased his ass down, and that's when it got chippy. Now, Tyrann Mathieu got a penalty for that when Tom Brady should have got an equal penalty, because Tyrann Mathieu said what he said as he ran by. So he was jaw-jacking as he ran by, and that pissed Tom off, and then Tom actually chased him down. So that should have been equal offsetting penalties, because Tyrann Mathieu said what he said as he ran by. He didn't purposely go to Tom Brady. He was running by, said some shit to Tom Brady, pissed Tom Brady off. Tom Brady ran him down. But because Tyrann Mathieu had said something, and let's face it, Tom Brady's the GOAT, and the GOAT's going to get calls. Like, come on. It's human nature, right? So,
like, can you imagine the kind of backlash that would have came out of the Super Bowl if the headline was referees eject Tom Brady for that?
Yeah, that'd have been fucking insane. That ref would have been hung. That ref would have been lynched outside the stadium. But
I mean, just have to look at the referees after the whole Airgate fiasco with all the balls have been deflated or inflated and all that kind of stuff. So, like, you just have to look at that and see what the backlash of that was. So, imagine if something like that, like, it's understandable that the penalty was called and stuff like that, but I think that one I would kind of look at in the whole that, but I can only time it from a kind of European standpoint of, in our sport, if you incite a reaction, you're fully to blame, because at the end of the day, you have incited that reaction from that player, from that fan, whatever. So because it is really, really bad to you. I mean, we've had things in, like, in Glasgow, we've got the Old Firm, which is you've got the football team Rangers, football team Celtic. Rangers have also always been known as the Protestant team. Celtic are the Catholic team. Rangers
Right.
were founded by the English Protestants. Celtic were founded by the Irish priests of Glasgow.
Right.
And they've been going as the Old Firm rivalry. Now, this is people have died over this game. So there's constant fights, there's constant just every horrible thing you can think of. It's there. So to the point where, like, up until I think the 80s, it was believed that the Rangers would never ever sign a Catholic player, would never sign someone from that religion.
Okay.
And the same was said about Celtic. They would never ever sign a Protestant player. And that was it. You used to have to go in with birth certificates and that kind of stuff to prove that you were not a Thai. And it's even quite right now. I mean, we're still getting comments where we've got a Croatian left back, Borna Barisic, who is, I mean, the Croatians, they're all like, they're religious and stuff like that. And Celtic have two other Croatians. And a news story came out he was talking about how on a Sunday at 9 p.m. he meets up with these other two Croatian players and they go to mass and the chapel and stuff like that. And the newspapers were trying to make it out this Rangers player was socialising with Celtic players at a chapel. And it was one of those ones that so many people got upset about it. And like the normal people were all like, and what? That's his religion. He's got anything with that. Who cares? So they're Croatian. They're all friends. They play like we don't get upset because a Rangers player and a Celtic player are playing for a national team. But like it's a no-go thing, and it's like so we've had things in that where like a Celtic player will go up towards like the Rangers fans and they'll start chanting and clapping and this and that and just being assholes. And we have the thing where it's you're inciting basically a riot because the Rangers fans will try and get on that pitch to knock your head in. And there's also times where Rangers players have done it towards Celtic fans. Like back in 1998 or so, or 1997, Celtic have, at the start of the match, they have this thing called the huddle, where they all group round and they have a talk. In this sport, it's a Celtic thing. Rangers don't do the huddle. Aberdeen don't do the huddle. Nobody else does the huddle. Celtic do. We won the championship at Celtic Park, their home stadium.
Damn.
And at the end of the match, the Rangers players done the huddle
in front of the
Celtic fans. And it sparked this huge, massive thing where it was like, players started getting death threats. Managers were getting bullets with their names sent to their houses. It was just an unbelievable thing. And it's like, I can understand when we're talking about that level of instigating.
Yeah.
I can see how in American football, they don't.
Yeah. No, yeah, I get it.
It really is not on level with. I mean, he said a couple of words. He didn't go and say something as bad as what could be said. So I think it was a bullshit call. Like I think
it was.
It was a bit, yeah. Like if he's going to get it, Brady should have got it as well.
Yeah, it should have been offsetting penalties.
Shouldn't have got it. It was just a bit of argy-bargy. It was just. It was in the heat of the moment of the game and stuff like that. But at the same time, if you start letting things go, where does it stop? Because then you'll start getting the ones, well, you let this guy off with it. Why are you not letting me off with it? And so.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like, and then after the game, Tyrann Mathieu was like, "Well, Tom Brady said some shit. I've never seen that. I'm not gonna repeat it, and I've never seen that side of Tom, bro. Do you not know who Tom Brady is? Like, Tom Brady shows up in a Tom Ford jacket, nice hair, sweetest guy. He puts a helmet on. He's a goddamn animal." He's talking about your mom. He's talking about your kids. Tom Brady, at one point, when he's playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, the night before the game, this hotshot cornerback was like, "Oh, Tom Brady's overrated, blah, blah, blah." Tom Brady made that dude his bitch the whole game and ran down, got helmet to helmet with the dude and like, "I just threw it up your fucking head, bitch." Just all up in this man's grill. You don't know who Tom Brady is, honey badger? Tom Brady ain't Ain't the Tom Ford haircut, ain't the supermodel wife on the field. That motherfucker's a savage. And he makes you fucking be like, I'm gonna rip your head off. Which is funny. Which brings me to the point of who did you think, or what did you think was the key to the Buccaneers victory? Because I want to hear your take from kind of like a pseudo outsider's perspective. What did you think was the key to victory for the Bucs?
I mean, in a kind of like a broad sense, like the kind of the typical answer, it would be Brady.
He had a hand
Like,
in it for sure.
Brady made that. I mean, it wasn't even Brady made that game. Brady made that team. I mean, what was the stats? The Buccaneers hadn't won a playoff game since 2002.
Yep.
When was the last time they'd made a Super Bowl?
I think it was 2002 with Rich Gannon and
Yeah.
John
So
Gruden.
you're looking at it like that. You look at Tom Brady and even Gronk at the Patriots and how much a well-oiled machine that was. They go to the Buccaneers, take them to the Super Bowl in their first season, wins the Super Bowl, and you can just see like he basically showed like all the hype about how Tom Brady is the greatest of all times and Mahomes is going to be the next, and you're like that. But if that is the next, Mahomes has got a hell of a lot to go until he's at that level. Because like obviously we had different commentators and stuff like that, but you look at the stats when Mahomes scored or passed his first completion, he'd done 6 incompletions before that moment.
Right.
Tom Brady made an incompletion and he'd made 9 completed passes before that moment. That is a massive difference. You can sit and talk about how Mahomes, he was under, like when he made that fucking parallel to the ground throw and the pass went through the guy's horns and donked him in the helmet.
There was two of those.
Twice that happened to him.
Right off the face mask.
You also have to look at when Mahomes had the ball. I can only mention maybe between 5 and 10 times he threw that pass. He either held the ball and ran himself out of bounds to try and make some yardage, or he passed the ball off. He did not have the confidence that you would expect someone like Mahomes that's coming in a second Super Bowl, having won it last year, played like a rookie. Tom Brady took control of that game, took control of the Buccaneers and the Chiefs, and made sure everybody knew that Tom Brady was not done. He was not finished. He was there for another stay. And Tom Brady, for me, made the difference to that Buccaneers team, because even in the moments where, like, that the first touchdown pass that should have been when Brady whipped that ball through and it went through the guy's horns and hit him in the head, and you're like they were making these times of, oh well, he doesn't do that, he doesn't catch for a living, and you're like, he's a fucking football player.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're a catcher, a receiver, a running back, a tight end. If you cannot catch a football, do not play that sport.
Facts.
And the fact that you could put so many factors. It was a Super Bowl. Maybe the nerves got to him. It's the first time there. So it does not matter. The fact that in that moment when everybody went, is this what it's going to be? Tom's going to be making these plays, and the Buccaneers are not going to be able to play it. And then who pops up? So that was 2 touchdowns for Gronk. That's what played maybe 1-2 games this season.
Yeah.
So it's like, for me, hands down, Brady made that team. Brady made that game, pretty much.
Yeah. No, that's a fair assessment, because Tom Brady, like, and we talked a little bit about it off air at the end of the game. We talked about how, like, you hear Tom Brady, right? It's Tom Brady. He's the most corny, dorky, like, soft-spoken, respectful dude, right? Always shows up like it's Tom. He's a dork, right? Yeah. He's the quintessential no scandal white guy, right? But he's been doing it for so long, right? But then Tom Brady steps on the field and he's an animal. And then at some point, when you're the Chiefs, the reality sets in that that's Tom fucking Brady.
Yeah.
That's the GOAT. 6 championships, 4 MVP trophies, record upon record upon record. At some point in that game, the opposing team, the Chiefs, realized that's Tom fucking Brady.
Yeah.
And the mental hurdle of overcoming that's Tom fucking Brady, and that's Rob Gronkowski, the all-century tight end, like better than any tight end in the last 100 years in the NFL, right? That plays a part, right? So,
Yeah.
from an outsider's perspective, Tom Brady made that game. You know what I saw? Not only did Tom Brady make that game, but Todd Bowles, the defensive coordinator for the Buccaneers, who ran 4 down linemen, 2 high safeties, classic cover 2, he shut Mahomes down.
Yeah.
They play too high, right? They play too high. So cover 2 is basically you have your down linemen, you got your linebackers, you got your corners on the outside, then you got your 2 safeties in back. Too high means your safeties play deep to cover the seams and the fly and the go route. So you can double the outside receivers, so the guys that are going to stretch the field. The problem with cover 2 is if you don't got linebackers to cover that space in between, which is called the flat, tight ends and running backs are going to eat your ass for breakfast. So, classic cover 2, you run your safeties and your corners deep, you run your linebackers in the flat. You need your down linemen, your 4 down linemen if you're doing the 4-3. So 4 down linemen, 3 linebackers, right? You rely on your 4 down linemen to beat their 5 offensive linemen, right? So you're playing 4 down, 2 deep, cover 2. It's called cover 2, right? Those boys on the Tampa Bay defensive line, Shaq Barrett, Vita Vea, and Ndamukong Suh, and Jason Pierre-Paul were in Mahomes' ass like they had a fetish for that young lad. Oh, they hit him. They hit him 8 times. They hit him 8 times. Sacked him 3. Do you know how many times they pressured him? Get this. This is the stat you're going to shit your pants on. Out of the 56 snaps that Patrick Mahomes took and dropped back, 29 times the Tampa Bay defensive lineman was in his ass. 29 of 56 snaps. Bro, that's like me walking up in your house and banging your woman 3 times a week. And you can't do shit. And Pro Football Focus calculated the number of negative yards that Patrick Mahomes had to scramble for. Take a wild fucking guess how many negative yards he scrambled for but didn't lose because he got rid of the ball. Take a wild guess how many yards he had to scramble for.
He must have made a decent, you must be talking in the 20s, 30s.
No. Patrick Mahomes' total scramble yardage to avoid getting sacked, 250 yards he ran. Just to avoid getting sacked. 250 yards in the other direction.
They were hunting him down, though. They were hunting him down.
Well, they were hunting him down because here's another thing. The second half, the defense just was able to pin their ears back because Kansas City gave up on the run. They had 17 total carries for 107 yards compared to Tampa Bay's 33 for 145. Kansas City was getting 6.9 yards a carry, where Tampa Bay was getting 4.4. Kansas City gave up on the run. So when they gave up on the run, those boys got to eat his ass even more because they weren't worried about the run game.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill didn't do shit. He had 3 catches for 13 yards. Travis Kelce couldn't catch the ball and run because Levante David and Antoine Winfield III, the linebacking crew, and Devin White would smack that motherfucker in the mouth. And here's another reason the defense played lights out. Because Andy Reid runs what they call scat protection. It means I'm gonna run my receivers and my tight ends out, and I'm gonna run my running backs out. So my 5 O linemen can beat your 4 down linemen.
Yeah.
The problem going into that game was Kansas City lost 3 starting offensive linemen. They didn't have their 2 starting tackles, and they lost their Pro Bowl right guard. So the last 6 weeks of the season, they had to reshuffle their line. 4 guys on Tampa Bay ate 5 dudes' lunch and smacked their quarterback in the mouth 8 times, pressured him 9 times, and just had him running for his life.
Yeah.
So the defense allowed Tom Brady to just play with no concerns. Tom Brady just was like, oh, my defense is going to eat this man's lunch. By the 3rd quarter, it was over, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure. Like, you even just have to look at that. Like, you look at when the Chiefs had the ball, and as soon as that snap was made, it was just a bombardment of...
Collapse the pocket.
Yeah, like, just behemoth men coming down. And you look at... Like, you just have to look at the simple... Like, the amount of time Brady had to, like, scan the entire field several times before he needed to throw that ball. It was just a constant, like... Mahomes did not have a second. And, yeah, you could turn around and go like, that's that, yep. The defense, or the defense for the Buccaneers were just on point. But it just shows you just how flappable Mahomes can be in that instance.
Yeah, you get punched in the mouth like he was. Whoa. But yeah. I'll tell you this, though. The one thing I did see on Twitter, people were like, oh, Mahomes played like shit. Mahomes did not play like shit.
No, I wouldn't put it down.
No, it wasn't Mahomes' fault. He played the best he could. And that throw he made in the beginning of the 4th quarter, you know the one I'm talking about, where Shaq Barrett takes his legs out from underneath him, just clips the fucking legs out from underneath him, and Mahomes is horizontal to the field. And whips that motherfucking ball 15 yards, and it bounces off the guy's face mask. There ain't another quarterback in the game that can make that throw. There ain't another quarterback on the game that can make that throw. Patrick Mahomes is not to blame for that game. What's to blame for that game is the offensive line could not stop Todd Bowles' defense. And the Kansas City secondary had no answer for Tom Brady. Because Tom Brady, ball was out. You notice Tom Brady's dropbacks, 2-3 seconds, ball is out.
Yeah.
Right? So when Tom Brady's playing lights out, and you got a defense that's feasting, it don't matter how good you are. And let's go back to the penalties. Kansas City played sloppy swagger football all season. Mm-hmm. They were sloppy all season. But you don't notice the sloppy penalties when you're rolling everybody.
Exactly.
But when you're playing sloppy and you're behind, and you're playing the GOAT, and he's got a defense that's in your ass, you can't swag. You can't swag.
And that was literally the argument that I was making, is that most of those penalties, the only reason people were making such a call about it is because it was against them. Like, you can absolutely guarantee, see if the Chiefs were 38-9 up, you can guarantee not one of them would be complaining about the 11 penalties that either the Bucks had gave away or the fact that they'd gave them away. Because why would you? Why would you mention it? The only reason these play calls are getting brought up is because they lost. That is it. Well, and it's not something to complain about. It's not something to turn around and go, oh, that's just stupid. Because it's just what happens in sport. No one will ever admit openly that their team just sucked. Like, that was it. Like, their team just did not turn up. Like, that's the be-all, end-all is that they played great for 2 seasons. The Chiefs played good football. But when they turned up that day, it just fell apart. And it happens to the best teams, happens to the worst teams. That's the joy of sport, is that anything can and will happen. So, because the Buccaneers were completely written off. See, over here especially, Bucks were completely written off. Underdogs to the highest heaven. And there you go.
Yeah.
It just shows you don't write anybody off.
Like you said, man, at some point, when they stepped on the field, they realized that they were playing the fucking GOAT.
Yeah.
And Patrick Mahomes has got so much pressure to be the next GOAT. When things weren't going right and he was doing everything he could, the Bucs defense just would not let the man breathe. Did you see that hit in the fourth quarter where Mahomes literally gets bent forward?
Oh yeah, with the three.
He gets hit
them
three
just
dudes,
sort of
right? Three dudes. Now that hit was clean. I disagree with the roughing the passer penalty because they called it on Jason Pierre-Paul, who was already falling into the quarterback. That was a clean hit. That's not roughing the passer.
Yeah.
That's just unfortunate. He got fucking mob banged. That's not a roughing the passer. JPP already was falling. What do you want him to do? Stop mid-fall?
In that moment, like, as much as you could tell, it's like, oh, it's rough and it's this and that. See the question that I raised on that? Where the fuck was his defense? Like, where were the three people that were supposed to stop that fucking behemoth of a man coming towards them? Where were they?
Watching them rip their quarterback.
Exactly. They were watching him get an absolute gangbanged after three big black dudes.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, that was hard to watch. That hit, I watched it and I was like, ooh.
Oh yeah, it was a cringy one. Like, it made you wince quite a good bit. But I would, like, that was where I would have turned around and like, well, that's football. Yeah, like, that's what you want to see. I mean, you don't want to see somebody get hurt.
No,
but you want to see a hard hit where it's like, put in your place. You're our bitch. Like, you are not going to make any fucking pass here. I mean, the next greatest of all time didn't throw a pass.
Yeah,
he didn't. Like, the 9 they got were field goals.
Yeah, he didn't get it in the end zone. He didn't get it done. That defense was so good. So let's put a final thought on this because we got more topics to hit. So, last thought on the Super Bowl. What's your takeaway?
Well, it wasn't as an exciting game as previous Super Bowls have been, but to see the kind of end season result of the Buccaneers and their amazing season, I think it was an overall, it was a good, solid NFL. Like, it made me go, I want to watch more NFL. Just to see that, it just goes to show that the smaller team, or the unknown teams, the teams that, like your Dolphins and your Jets and stuff like that, anything can happen. You make something work well, you'll make it.
Yeah, that's fair. For me,
it puts that wee bit more hope.
For me, I think my final thought on the game was it wasn't, because it's hard for me to put this in perspective because I was an athlete. I've played the game, right? So to see people on Twitter go, oh, it was boring, they got beat down. They did, and it was boring from one perspective, but watching the storyline of the trench warfare of the offensive line, watching that two deep down four defense dismantle one of the most flashy, fun offenses the league has seen in a decade, that to me was, I was riveted. I wanted to see if Mahomes would be able to flip a switch and figure it out. I wanted to say for the game. Tom Brady said we'll be better next year, and that's terrifying. It's terrifying.
Like,
because they're that
you just
good
went
now.
the Super Bowl by mauling the Chiefs, and you're going, we'll make some changes and we'll come back better.
Yeah, that's just terrifying. If I was opposing teams, I'd be worried. What's up, Merc? So, all right, let's transition to our next major topic, and then we'll hit some rambles, and then we'll go on to a few other things. So, the next topic that we're going to talk about is Wall Street financial shenanigans. Now, I'm not as schooled in this as football, so this might be a shorter conversation, but the past couple weeks, Wall Street has been going fucking bonkers. Now, what happened is this Reddit forum called Wall Street Bets is basically 4chan with a stock market terminal, right?
Yeah.
A bunch of dudes who know how to fuck around in the market got pissed off and was like, oh, let's fuck with people. So they noticed that the major hedge funds were doing what's called a short sell on GameStop. And layman's short sell is when a company invests in a stock, they want to drive it low so they make money. If the stock prices rises, they lose money. That's the short sell. You follow?
Mm-hmm.
So these Wall Street bet dudes had seen the market trend and were like, oh, bet, let's fuck up the system. So the one guy who started it, and before I go into this next point, this whole Wall Street bets thing was billed as like the everyman gamer against Wall Street. And no, bro, it wasn't. Because the way this whole shit got started is these dudes dropped $100K into GameStop. So it wasn't like me and you dropping $5 on a stock.
Yeah, it wasn't the everyday gamer, because
no.
gamers do not have a spare $50,000 just sitting in a drawer next to them ready to go.
It was these fucking shit posters who know how the market works and had some money and were like, let's fuck with the market. We'll do a short squeeze. Now a short squeeze is you buy low and you want to drive it up, so whoever was counting on it staying low loses the money. Yeah. So Wall Street Bets is like, oh, you're shorting it, well, we'll squeeze it. They get 50 grand, 100 grand, and they start driving this shit up, right? The market loses its mind because then the everyman catches on. At one point, GameStop was trading as low as $4. And they drove it to $438. Yeah. Okay? So as this stock is rising, and AMC was in there and a couple others, but GameStop was the main one.
Yeah, they were kind of the big ones.
As GameStop starts doing this, these billionaire hedge funds lose $3.8 billion, right? And another hedge fund has to step in and does a stimulus of $2.1 billion, and they lose that. Then, once $6 billion of hedge fund money goes away, private citizen investor apps like Robinhood and a couple of the smaller ones are like, well, you can't buy GameStop no more. You can only sell what you got.
Yeah.
That's when the fucking controversy hits, because that shit, that's dirty as fuck. Because basically what Robinhood did was Wall Street was losing money, and then they were like, no, you can't trade.
Yeah.
And then everybody was like, well, how come we can't manipulate the market, but these hedge fund guys can manipulate the market? Now, it is totally fair and within the terms of service for Robinhood to delist a stock or whatever. Like, it's read their EULA. They can do that. It's fair for them to do it. That don't mean it ain't dirty as fuck and bullshit. So, I mean, what's your take?
Oh, I just think it's an amazing thing of these rich people were upset about losing money, that they were trying to get the likes of the media and the government to come in and be on their side, and you're like, what you were doing was literally illegal, because they were literally putting out the evidence as to what this Wall Street Bets were doing was illegal, but what they were doing was what Wall Street were doing. So basically, like, the argument that I seen from it is that these Wall Street Bets went in to fuck up their day and forced Wall Street to prove they were in fact doing illegal shitty things in order to prove that Wall Street Bets were doing illegal shitty things. And you're like, that, how fucking stupid can you be? You've literally just fucked yourself even more than what you're, because now you've got Congress that are now starting to take a look. You never want Congress to start looking into what you're doing in shoddy workspaces here. And exactly. I just think it's like the whole thing, like I never really was able to follow it, like it's stocks and that kind of stuff wasn't my thing, and it seemed a lot more of an American thing. Like, I don't know Wall Street and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I've seen the movie, but that's where I stopped.
It's a fucking casino.
Yeah.
All Wall Street
So,
is a fucking casino where people gamble with commodities instead of cash. They take gold and they move it around. They take federal income loans, they move them around. They take shares of this, that, or that, and they move it around. And it's all dictated by like who buys, who sells, and it's a boys' club. Because
yeah.
before Corona hit, a bunch of congressmen got intel that coronavirus is going to be a thing. And congressmen got stock. So a bunch of those motherfuckers after the coronavirus briefing hit sold their shit and made bank.
Yeah.
Because the minute Corona hit, the market went into the shitter. So
I think that's what hit me more is the fact that when I was hearing about them, you're like, oh, that's just gamers and Reddit doing what Reddit do. And then when you actually hear that one of the reasons why they done it was because these Wall Street people literally banked on people losing their livelihoods. Like, they literally banked on a pandemic that was killing people to make money. And at that point, you go, well, do you know what? See, anything that anybody can do to make sure that you can't go and buy your seventh $4 billion yacht, fucking well done to them. So I hope every single one of them, anybody that banked on the pandemic, should lose everything they have just to show them just the impact that this pandemic's created, not just in America and the UK, but across the entire globe. People have lost everything, and these people had the audacity to go out and try and make money on it.
yeah,
It's a shocking thought process. Like, just to even think that there's people on this planet that would go to that low to make a buck, and you're like, that's a horrible existence to know.
yeah, I read an article. Last week that said the pandemic has created more billionaires and the first trillionaires in the history of the world. Because the dirty secret of this right now, is the pandemic didn't hurt Walmart, didn't hurt Amazon, it didn't hurt Sony or any of that. It hurt your mom and pop, your local general store. It hurt your local tea. It didn't hurt Starbucks. It hurt the local mom and pop who make their own coffee. It didn't hurt fucking McDonald's. It hurt Jim Bob's Breakfast Nook, right? Because we were told, shut it down. It's not safe. Your people can't work.
Yeah.
But yet, your ass can walk into Walmart. Your ass can go to the drive-thru at the Mickey D's. Oh, and Amazon's running double time, baby. They got your toilet paper. The pandemic didn't hurt. The pandemic didn't hurt business. The pandemic hurt us.
Yeah.
And then you get these Wall Street fucks who gamble on it and be like, well, that stock's going to go because they got to stay open or this, that, and the other thing. So yeah, you get these fucks that gamble on the outcome of this pandemic wrecking people's lives to make their millions. So then Wall Street Bets decides to push back, right? Just as fucking shit posters do. The market then goes, oh, no, we can't have that. Stop them.
Yeah.
And then you're going to tell me that it's okay for Wall Street to do it, but yet when a bunch of like pissed off people decide to push back, it's suddenly wrong?
Yeah.
Bag that shit right there. Bag that shit all day.
Yeah,
but
it's going to be fun and interesting to see just how much of a blowback is the government going to go on it. Like, are the government really,
ain't nothing
because
gonna happen.
Surely to God, they must look at this situation and go, if we're seen to be defending Wall Street, or we show that we're not going to do anything, there's going to be a lot of blowback on that.
No, there won't. I'll tell you right now. Because the reason why there won't be blowback, and I don't mean to cut you off, because, and I'm not trying to be a dick, but there are too many low information voters in America to hold anybody accountable for shit. Because what'll happen is the congressman will come out and they'll grandstand and they'll say, oh, this is bad. We're going to make sanctions, blah, 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 blah. And then they're going to get on the phone the minute they get off TV and be like, yo, JP Morgan Chase? Yeah, don't worry about it. You're good. Just make sure it doesn't happen again. It'll just be, don't do that. And then the American people will be like, they won't do it again. Because, especially over here, there's too many low information and apathetic voters that vote against their own interest because they vote for, well, I mean, he said he was going to do something.
I haven't seen it as well. Yeah.
And that fucking pisses me off. And I don't like getting into politics like that because I'm high intelligence. I read. I fucking listen. And I scream out the window like Jimmy Stewart or the famous actor who did in 12 Angry Men where he's like, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. That's me. But I'm a rarity over here, unfortunately. And like you said, it happens over there too. And that's exactly what's going to happen. They'll come out, they'll sing, they'll dance. They'll have a sharply worded letter and a mean press conference. And they'll say that they're going to oversee Wall Street a little better, yada, yada, yada. Nothing's going to happen. However, the class action lawsuits that are happening to Robinhood, that's going to do some shit. That's going to do some shit.
For sure.
But I think it's funny that it was sold that it was the everyman punching back at Wall Street, when in reality it was a bunch of rich shit posters who wanted to fuck with the guys on Wall Street just to show that they could. Because a couple hedge funds lost a lot of money, but let's be real, there were a lot of other hedge funds that made a fuck ton of money.
Oh yeah, there was definitely but that's the scary thing, is that it doesn't matter. Like, even when themselves are getting fucked, they're still able to make some money somehow, and it's terrifying. Yeah. It's a terrifying thought.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I mean, there are a couple good things that came out of this, and I think I'll put my final dib on this because I'm running out of what I know of it.
Yeah.
The Wall Street bets thing has raised the awareness and the need to understand commodities and stocks and dividends and just how hinky shit is. So A, you can either play the game, or two, you can find out why the game is fucking you. And I think that's a good thing, because now a lot more people are talking about Bitcoin and Dogecoin and Ethereum, because those are currencies that aren't dictated by the market. They're dictated by the amount of currency that's in circulation. And I think this has had a positive effect on the awareness of what the market actually is and how fragile markets can be, and just how much you're getting screwed by said markets, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
All right, so what we're going to transition to now is our first what we call Ramble of the Night. This is called the Dox Ramble. So we're going to hit the little audio transition. So that is !D Ramble.
Do you speak any English? Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? Nope. I cannot believe this shit.
Cannot believe this shit. So my ramble for tonight is a little more positive, but yet still a little bit of passionate thing. I'll make it quick. We're coming up on the hour and a half mark. We're targeting about 2.5 hours, so I'm gonna make this short and sweet. Let's talk pit bulls. Let's talk bad breeds, and let's talk bad pack leadership. Pit bulls, and I'm biased because I got one. I'm gonna tell you that my bias right now. My bias is out front. I got a pit bull. She's 55 pounds, and she's a fucking sweetheart, right? Problem I have, and the way I want to hit this ramble, is pit bulls, for the longest time, have been maligned as this vicious, nasty killer breed. They have this reputation of being bad dogs and killer animals. And it's bullshit. Because most pit bulls, now I'm gonna drop some knowledge on you on chat here, so pay attention. All dog breeds go through what's called temperament testing. It basically tests their temperament of how they react to stimuli and what their mental traits are. Do you know that pit bulls pass temperament testing at a higher rate than almost any other breed of dog on the planet? Better than German Shepherds, better than fucking Labs, better than... Think of a friendly breed, right? Pit bulls test higher in their temperament testing than those breeds, which means those dogs are safer than the other dogs. And here's another fun fact. In the Victorian era, up until the Industrial Revolution and beyond, to about the modern era, pit bulls were known as what? Say it with me. The nanny breed of dog. Now, what does that mean? That means if you had small children and a pit bull, mom and dad were going to the theater and old Sparky Doo was watching the kids. Because that dog would keep an eye on them, make sure they wouldn't get into no shit. And when the parents came home, dog would show up at the door and be like, I did my job, boss. Kids are in bed. House is safe. How do you go from a nanny breed to this vicious killer dog, right? I'll tell you why. Asshole fucking cunty bitch owners who see a big, thick, muscular, good-looking animal who's meant to do work, and they're like, that's a guard dog. I could fight that dog. Now, dog fighting, whether you like it or not, is a global phenomenon. It's happened throughout history. Man has always wanted to put beast against beast, dog against dog, man against man. It happens. I don't approve of it, but it's not my culture. Just like the dog festival in China happens, where they eat dogs. It's not my culture. I don't approve, but I'm also not going to be like, I'm not going to raise a stink about it. I have no say in it. You ain't getting dog fighting in my backyard or my neighborhood. I'll put a stop to that. And the other reason pit bulls get a bad rap is, again, I'm going to come off as ignorant and white. The hip-hop culture of seeing a big-ass pit bull on a chain, barking it up and just looking thick and mean, they're a status symbol. You get a big, thick pit on a thick-ass chain looking hard as fuck, you're seen as a bad motherfucker. When in reality, all the pit bull wants to do is lick your face and sleep on your bed. Like, seriously. Pit bulls are not the vicious killers that they're portrayed as. They're not these bad dogs, right? They get a bad rep. Much like Dobermans get a bad rep, Rottweilers get a bad rap, you know, because they're big, they're thick, they're hard-looking animals, right? And they've been used as status symbols and gatekeepers to cultures. They've been used as fighting dogs because a pit bull, she'll take a motherfucking bear down. Like, I got no worries. Like, someone comes in my house. You come in my house as a guest, my dog's going to lick your fucking face and drown you in love. You come in my house with bad intentions, I don't feel sorry for you, because if I don't get you, that bitch is going to get you. And if that bitch don't get you, the redhead upstairs with the baseball bat's going to get you. Or any combination of the three. And I think I have a problem with it is because pit bulls are strong and personable. And if you don't have a good command and leadership, a pit bull will kind of push its boundaries. Like any strong breed, any kid will, any intelligent, strong, opinionated, sapient being of any intelligence is going to run roughshod over you if you aren't a strong pack leader. And pit bulls need that good example. They need that alpha dog, that alpha female in the house to balance them out. But then they also need the members of the house to keep them in check too. The alphas call the shots, but the rest of the pack mates also keep them in line. And all too often, people who are unprepared get these pit bulls and these big dangerous breeds because they're bad. They're tough. They're going to look like a badass motherfucker. And then when the pit bull strikes out and gets unbalanced, they don't know how to handle it. And then the pit bull just gets loose. And I think what needs to happen is instead of labeling the breed as bad, we need to start being not so PC and not so bitchy and look at people and go, you don't need to, you're not you're not well equipped enough to handle this dog. So no, you don't get this dog. We need to be honest with the people coming to get the dogs and look at them and go, you can't handle it. Pick another dog. And you're going to get offended and you're going to get pissed. And I don't care. You can't handle it. You don't get it. You ain't going to give a 5-year-old a loaded shotgun and be like, there you go, Timmy. Play with your gun. Because that's what a pit bull, a Rottweiler, a Doberman, a German Shepherd is. They're a loaded gun when not balanced. Because they're big, they're strong, and they have massive protective instincts. And if you can't handle it, or you don't want to put the time in, you don't deserve it. Thoughts on pit bulls, bad breeds, or poor leadership, Chris?
Oh, well, I mean, we have our own kind of thing with the cats. I mean, pit bulls are actually banned in the UK.
Yeah, fuck that noise.
You're not actually allowed to own or breed or thing with the cat pit bulls. I was actually just looked it up there. It's like it's under the Dangerous Dog Acts in 1991. There's 4 dogs that you're not allowed to own in the UK, and it's a pit bull terrier, a Japanese Tosa, a Dogo Argentino, and a Fila Brasileiro.
Those are some badass dogs, though. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh yeah, definitely. But again, like you said, the dogs are not badass dogs. The owners are terrible owners.
Yeah,
that's. I mean, my thing where is I'll never really have a good opinion on this kind of thing because, as far as I'm concerned, animals should not be kept as pets anyway. I don't understand the concept of pets. I struggle myself to be able to keep myself going. Why would I bring another animal into that kind of situation? And to be honest, I don't agree.
You don't agree with the whole pet thing? Did I lose you, Chris? Oh, Discord's having issues. Hang on. Technical difficulties. People give us a second. Discord's kind of schwank wank right now. There he goes. Chris is back. What's up, Chris? We lost you. We're back.
All right. If I just had a big thing there.
Yeah, you kind of froze like this.
All right, that's good to know. Was my sound coming through at least?
No, you completely just.
Oh, right.
Your Discord took a shit, which is okay.
No,
so, like, right. Just summarize what you got.
Yeah. No, what as me personally, I wouldn't own a pet. I don't think people should have pets because most people aren't able to take care of a pet. The full point of a pet is that you're going to give that pet the best possible or the best life. Most people are not able to give the animal the best life possible. So I would honestly say there's at least 90% of the population of the world that should not have an animal. I know on your point you say that animals are like you have to be able to balance and be able to train them, make sure that you're the alpha, make sure they know where they are in that pack and all that kind of stuff. But it's one of those, like in your argument of people should be able to make a test or have a test. They go like, well, you can't handle that kind of dog. This is the type of dogs that you can handle. But you're like, it's one thing being able to handle a dog that's got a pack mentality, or it's a mean dog, or it's an aggressive dog, or it's a hunting dog, or anything like that, or they're throwing like a Shih Tzu and all that kind of stuff. All that does is open up. All that opens up is the fact that like say like Shih Tzus and Schnauzers and all that kind of stuff, they are bred to be a lap dog. They are bred and made into that. These things were not nature. So what's happening is these animals are being created for industry
human convenience
that really is not needed. It's like as people see, oh, I want a cute little dog, I want a cute little this, I want a cute little that, and you're like that. But these are not. They're not supposed to be that. These were hunting like.
Well, they
stem
wolves.
from like wolves. It's like
yeah, they were,
you look at a wolf and you look at a Shih Tzu, and you're like, what happened?
Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, just me personally, it's more on a personal thing. On that, as I said, I find it difficult to fucking keep myself alive some weeks So why would I bring an animal into that situation? But so many other people have that, where you're getting an animal because it's a fun thing to have at Christmas time, or that your child has said, I want this, I want that. Everybody knows that when a child says, I want this dog, I will look after this dog, I will take this dog for a walk. That's not going to happen. You will be taking care of that dog. And if you're not prepared to take care of that dog, why the fuck are you getting that dog for that 5-year-old?
Yeah, and you bring up a great point. What is a pet, right? All too often, pets are they're substitutions for affection, right? People get pets because they want to feel love. They want to feel that unconditional love that they didn't get, or they feel they weren't given, so they get a pet to replace that love that they didn't get. And all too often,
a lot of pressure to put on just an animal.
yeah,
Like, that's a lot of pressure.
fail.
Like, that's like turning around and saying something like, "Oh, I'm want to date you because I'm so unhappy, and if I have you in my life, I'll be happy." And you're like, but that's an awful lot of pressure to be putting on somebody else or another animal or something like that. It's just like that's not their job. That's not their problem. Like, you failed to get the unconditional love that you look for and all that kind of stuff. That's a you problem. You have to deal with that. Don't put that shit on somebody else or an animal or anything like that. Like,
Right, but you're brushing aside the fact that humans are self-centered idiots. That's what it comes down to.
But you can't really put it down as humans are self-centered, because, like, this argument or this debate right now, it's like, I'm not. So
Right.
there's a percentage that, yeah, they're just thing me. Like, that's just how it is. And I'd like to hope that there's a small portion of the population of the world that's their mentality of this animal, because I didn't feel loved as a child, or I never felt loved in this situation. Right. Let's get an animal to thing me. I'd like to think that the majority of people that get a pet is because they go, I'm going to love this pet with all my heart. I'm going to make sure, fight tooth and nail, that no matter what, this pet is given the best fucking life possible. But
yeah,
there's so many horror stories that you hear where you go, that isn't what's happening. And is it going to be one of the ones where you're going to have to reset the system and go, right, no one's allowed anything. No one's allowed a pet. No one's allowed an animal. No one's allowed a dog, a cat, a fish. You're not allowed anything because as a whole, you cannot handle it. This species is not developed enough to be able to control another species, because we can't control our own species. That's why we have prisons. That's why we have this. That's why we have that. Because the human race cannot handle themselves. Why would you put something like that in charge of another species?
Yeah, you make a really good point in the fact that humans have this existential need for control and affection, and we do brush that off on our pets. Now, I can speak from my experience of being a pet owner and somebody who grew up with pets off and on. Before we brought Nyx home, we had the conversation. Is she with us till she dies? If the answer is no, not happening, right?
Yeah.
Can we provide the best medical care like we would for our kids? Yes or no? Yes, we can. Is her nutrition going to be a priority like our nutrition is? Because if you know anything about me, and you see on my Twitter and my Instagram,
yeah,
I don't do Kraft macaroni. I don't do box bullshit. So why would I do that shit for my dog? Because that bitch gets high grade, fucking high end protein. That dog eats better than I do some nights. So I see your point. There's a portion of the population that should not have a pet whatsoever because they can't handle it. Then there's that middle ground who realize that they shouldn't get a pet, but do anyway because they want that affection. And then there's even a smaller part, like me and my girlfriend and a few other people I know, who can provide for that animal.
Yeah.
And much like you can apply this ramble to children. There are a lot of people who shouldn't have fucking kids. But they do anyway. And it's unfair. It's unfair to the animal to put the expectations on the animal, but then it's also unfair to punish humanity as a whole. Like you said, you can't reset the system. You know what I mean? So, anyway, that's my ramble. We're going to move on to Chris's ramble. I'm going to hit his audio cue and let him do his thing. Which I made this ramble just to piss him off, so here you go.
Yeah.
What did he say?
All right, hit it, Chris.
Well, my ramble is probably not as hard-hitting as yours, but it could actually be quite hard-hitting. What it is I'll not go into kind of details and names and that kind of stuff, because I don't know how because it's
Right.
for somebody else, and I don't want to start saying things out of line and stuff like that, because
Right, you don't
it's somebody else's story. But there's another streamer that I mean, Tim will know quite a good bit of this because he follows the streamer as well. But they've been going through quite a lot of things with like stalking and stuff like that, and it's been really, really bad and that. And they made videos with other streamers kind of talking on these points, and they were talking about how they felt as if the police weren't doing enough in the UK, and this wasn't happening and that wasn't happening. So I kind of took a kind of hold of another part. One of my friends for school is actually a politician. He's a voted in minister for the Scottish government and the UK government. So I wrote to him back in September, just kind of outlining what was going on and how this wasn't being done, that wasn't being done, what could be done to be able to broad it out and stuff like that. And they wrote back to me kind of thing, like, we're going to put it through. It's a big thing. We'll make sure this goes to the governments and stuff like that. And today I got an email back with an apology saying, oh, really, really sorry it's taking so long to get back. And you're like, well, with the pandemic and this and that, I could understand to its timing. But the email I was reading, it was literally, all I could see in it was how much of a cop-out it was getting made to be.
Right.
And it was like, I'll kind of be able to give you a couple of wee kind of points in it that really thing me, because there was just a few detailed points that they thymied out that just made me kind of go, you've literally just said this in this email to fill a void. Like, it's not as if you've actually taken the time to thing me it. But basically, in their email letter that they've sent out, they'd spoke about how like they'd sent the letter to like the Minister for Safeguarding and this and that kind of stuff, and then they went into a whole 2 paragraphs about stalking is a terrible, insidious crime that can have a devastating impact on victims' well-being. This government is committed to protecting and supporting victims and is determined to do everything it can to stop perpetrators at the earliest opportunity. Case 1, they will do everything it can to stop perpetrators at the earliest opportunity, right? And then they find me, and it's like, oh, I'm grateful for you showing the story. Can only imagine how distressing the experience has been for them. I must explain, right? This is where it's like, it literally in one paragraph, it went from, this government is committed to protecting and supporting victims and is determined to do everything it can to stop perpetrators at the earliest opportunity. I must explain that neither government ministers nor officials can intervene in the proceedings of individual cases. Okay, so you've literally went from telling us how you're going to do everything to that you can't do anything. I can assure you that this is not because of any lack of concern, but because to do so would undermine the principle that the police and criminal justice system are entirely operational and independent of the government. And you're like, so what you're saying is the government that creates the laws cannot do anything about the laws. And then the other argument that we were making was that it wasn't that the laws weren't in place, because we know the laws are in place. There's some laws that still have to be developed and kind of brought up to speed with 2020 and how the online world is kind of moving faster. But it's the fact that the police were not doing the job. Like, no, the streamer had said that they'd contacted the police and gave the information, and they got a letter back and that kind of stuff saying that they weren't able to get the information from Twitch and all that for like online presence and profiles and that. They then contacted Twitch, who then said that all the police had to do was fill in a form and they would be given all the information needed. The police
I know who
then,
you're talking
when
about.
they went to it, the police then stated that it was not in the taxpayers' interest to follow up. And you're like, well, they're a taxpayer. Why is it not within their interest? There's millions of people in the UK alone that are being stalked. Is it not within their interest that something gets done? But it's the fact that in this letter, to fill this void that they've decided to give, they literally list off things like, in 2012, we created 2 stalking offences to highlight stalking as specific behaviour, and through the Policing and Crime Act 2017, the maximum sentences have been raised from 5 to 10 years. The law is clear that what is illegal offline is also illegal online. We're not debating that. At no point was I debating that.
Right.
So there is robust legislation in place to deal with internet trolls, cyber stalking and harassment. At the Queen's speech on 19th December 2019, the government committed to develop legislation to improve internet safety for all. Again, we are not debating that. We are not saying that's not what you're doing. We are saying that the police is not doing what you're doing. They literally, this is the kicker. This is what really drove this deep for me. Now, we've reached out to the Scottish Government and we reached out to the UK Government as a whole. The UK Government, right, like they're supposed to oversee everything, then put in this letter. Policing is, of course, devolved in Scotland, and I trust that you will be raising these concerns locally. This is not a local issue. This is not a problem within Scotland. We are reaching out to the entirety of the UK government as a problem, and they literally were trying to tell us that the issue with that is that they cannot control the policing in Scotland. We're like, well, that's not the problem. We need to control all of the policing because they're not doing their job. That is what's happening. But they literally list off a whole thing about how they've given the police, like in January this year, we introduced new civil stalking protection orders. These enable early police intervention, pre-conviction to address stalking behaviours before they become deep-rooted or escalate. Stalking protection orders can be used in relation with any type of stalking. It goes through, carry a maximum sentence for 5 years. I understand that this is extremely important that the police are provided with the correct materials and that the streamer feels that the police are not talking or taking preventative measures in her case. In April 2019, the College of Policing provided a set of new advice products on stalking for police first responders and call handlings. The Home Office also gave 4.1 million through the Police Transformation Fund and the MOPAC, which is like the Mayor's Office for Police and Crime. The work in partnership with the Susie Lamplugh Trust and that with the 3 police forces for a pioneering project working with perpetrators of stalking. So they've literally told me in this letter that they've put a lot of legislation in, that the police have all these resources, and all I can take from that is you have told me that the police have everything they need to do this, and they're not doing it.
Yeah, that's...
Like, they've literally taken the time to tell me.
Yeah.
And
it amounts to, yeah, we did things, and now it's up to the police to do it. And the police are like, well, our hands are tied because it's not a priority because nobody's fucking dead or raped yet.
Yeah.
I know I know the streamer you're talking about, by the way. Yeah. It's fucking insane.
Yeah, and it's the fact that that's not the only streamer that's doing it. And the worst thing is it's not even a streamer problem. There's people like one of the news stories that the streamer keeps or would bringing up now is there was a woman that her ex-boyfriend would break into her house and watch her sleeping. She contacted the police over and over and over again. The boyfriend put a tracker on her car, so he knew exactly where she was, if she was in or out the house, and and she kept on going, and the police told her that he hadn't done anything, and he walked into her house and killed her. Now, if the police had taken what they knew and had done something about it, she would still be alive today, but because of the police incompetence And it's just today just proper drilled at home that at one point you were like, it's just police incompetence. They don't know, they just don't understand the concept that the online world has. But to then find out that the police actually have every resource available to them, they've been given millions to be able to prevent this kind of stuff, but yet are not doing something. It's just a kind of like, well, the government's just kind of flung the police under the bus then, because they've just told me that they have everything to be able to do it, and they're doing nothing. So it's like, who are we supposed to blame? Do we blame the legislation or do we blame the cops?
Well, part of the problem is policing is reactionary and not proactive. So policing is a reactionary action. So like a lot of times, especially here in America, I can be like, yo, I know this guy's a fucking psycho and he's been doing X, Y, and Z. What are you gonna do about it? We get the response, well, he hasn't done anything yet. Call us back when he does something.
Yeah.
I don't need him to do something. I need you to do something before he does it.
Because there's a thing that we have here, and it's a joke, because it was a wee joke in the newspaper and all that kind of stuff, and it was like this fake news story, and it was a guy was in his bedroom and he could hear something out in his garden, so he looked out his window and there was 3 guys trying to break into his shed. So he phoned the police and said, there's 3 people trying to break into my shed, I need you to send somebody out. And the dispatcher says, well, have they got into the shed yet? No. So, well, there's nothing that we can do. So until they've done something, we can't do something. So he phones back a couple of minutes later and he's like, look, these 3 people, they've now broken into my shed. It's like, well, have they stolen anything yet? It's like, no, they're still in the shed. It's like, well, we can't do anything. So he then phones them back and goes, look, it's okay, you don't have to send anybody. I've went out and I've killed the 3 of them. 7 police officers in cars then show up and arrest the 3 men in the shed. And when the copper asks, I thought we were told that you'd came out and killed somebody. And the guy's like, no, I was told that you would come out and help.
Yeah. That's
so
all
like,
too often. That's the thing. It's the reactionary nature of policing. It's an unfortunate thing because all too often they're held to the standard of, well, nothing happened. There was
it's victim blaming.
It is. There was a famous rapper that just came out with a song, and one of the lyrics in the song was, order food and call the cops, see which one shows up first. And the fact of the matter is, that's a fucking reality right now. Is like, because policing is such a reactionary thing, I could call Uber Eats and they'd get here before the cops would. Because the cops can't do anything until shit's happened. We don't need you to do shit when it's happened already. We need you to be able to act when there's credible threats and credible evidence that something is going to happen. But then you get into the morality. Do we arrest people that we think are going to commit crimes? Or do we violate people's privacy to prevent crimes that may happen? So
I don't think that you would have to invade in someone's privacy to prevent crimes. Crime prevention should be our number one kind of target. Is that you don't have to be in a thing, but like, see if you receive a phone call from someone that says this person has done this or this person is threatening to do that. It shouldn't be we'll wait and see if he does it. It should be we'll come down and we'll take them away. Right, and put in place something like, because there's always 2 sides to every story. You could turn up and this person's like, oh, this person would say that they would do that. See if there's no evidence that it says that, then it's understandable to go, it might be an overreaction or something like that. But in other cases where it's like people are getting like text messages, or if you take a photo of somebody that's breaking into your garden, you send it to the police should be coming out and going, it shouldn't be we'll have to wait and see if he steals more than one thing, or we have to wait and see if he does turn up to your door and stabs you through it, or we have to wait. Like, we have to wait instead of just if somebody, like, it's innocent until proven guilty. That is the way it should be. It always should be that. But we shouldn't have to wait until they become guilty to be able to understand that there's a problem.
Facts. That's a great point.
If somebody phones you 3 times and three different people phone you and say this person is going to do this, go and deal with it. Don't just sit back and go, well, wait. So, because surely to God, it isn't about paperwork. Surely to God, it isn't. If we wait until they've done it, it's less paperwork for us to have to fill out. But it's like, it just seems to be a constant. Like with this letter as well, they'll write things or they'll say things to fill a void that they just don't want to answer. And I feel as if, like you were saying about like the Wall Street thing, we're getting to a point where society is starting to have a bit more intelligence and ask the questions that should be. Like here, there was during the pandemic and all that kind of stuff, there was a whole big uproar about our NHS, which is our National Health Service, which is free to all people or people that pay into the National Health Service, that pay your taxes and stuff like that.
Right.
And during the pandemic, they were coming out, like the NHS were coming out and saying their hospitals couldn't handle the influx of these people. They couldn't do this, they couldn't do that. They needed help. And every week they started this whole, we're going to go out and we're going to clap for the carers. So people would go out on a Thursday night at 8 o'clock and clap for the NHS as a kind of around the country, thank you for everything that you do, which is a great thing. Like, they should be thanked. But the problem is they were demanding that the nurses in the UK, they have to pay a fee every year to be a nurse.
Oh, like
for their
like
licenses,
they
need to pay to be a nurse, and they're being asked to go in the front line. Now, they've put holds on like wages and stuff like that they can't get pay rises and stuff like that. Now, a doctor or a nurse can go and do easily 60 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll get paid for 40 hours like somebody else.
That's bullshit.
And that's bullshit and all that kind of stuff. Now, I'm a firm believer that if you go for a job, like if you go and they say you have to train for 7 years, and you go, right, that's perfect, and they go, but after 7 years, when you go a job, this is the wage that comes with it. You cannot go for 7 years and then go, well, I want more money. Because you were told 7 years ago that was what the wage was for that job. That's like turning up and like going into the job centre and saying, right, what job's that? And they go, well, you can do this job, but it's £7.50 an hour. You can't.
Right. And he's robot again. I love it. Well, he's in Scotland, so there's gonna be tech issues. He'll be back in like 20 seconds. But look at that face. Look at that face. Oh, we lost him. He gone. Oh, he's coming back. He's coming back, ladies and gentlemen. He's coming back.
Yeah, she'll be back.
Now you get to see two of me until his camera kicks in. There it is.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening with this
But
thing.
no, I know where you're going with it. I agree. I think the fact that so many things are contradictory to what logic would state. That if a nurse is on the front line, they should deserve respect, but they should also be paid what they're worth. Like, it's the same argument for an educator. An educator is by far one of the most important professions in the world. And they make less than a burger flipper. How does that make sense?
Well,
So
that was
I
the
get
kind
what you're saying.
That was the kind of thing. The way I was saying it is, like, when this was all going on and the things and that kind of stuff, it's shown up that the NHS was severely underfunded. They were not getting the funds needed to be able to handle this pandemic. And there was a chap that thingied that he was 101 years old, and he'd done a charity thing where he was going to walk the length of his garden.
I heard about that.
And he raised something like £26 million
It was
for
ridiculous.
the NHS. And It was an amazing thing. It brought the country together and everybody celebrated. He died last week.
Oh,
And everybody was talking that he needed a send off and this kind of stuff and all that. But as much as it was an amazing thing, all that I could think of is the UK people that work, pay their taxes and pay their national insurance in order to fund the NHS. The NHS was not being funded. It should not be left to the public of the country to raise charity money when that is a government funded thing. The government should go, or if the NHS turn around and go, we actually need 2 billion a year to be able to do this, you're only giving us one. It shouldn't be up to the public to raise that money. The government should go, well, we'll give you 2 billion a year. And
yeah,
that's
they
where
should.
I'm meaning in the whole prevention thing is that people were too focused on it had to be someone else to blame, somebody else to blame, somebody else to blame. When now people should be are starting to kind of ask the questions that should be of. It's not the questions of how can we raise this money? It's why do we have to raise this money when the government is what it should be? And then in the case with the stalking and stuff like that, and the police, it's like that. It shouldn't be what can we do to help the police. It should be why are the police not doing what they've to do when they have the resources available?
Yeah, exactly. And that again, it comes down to a lot of it is the bureaucratic red tape. A lot of it is the politics behind it. A lot of it is the moral quandary of should we or shouldn't we? And then you get the politics involved, you get the politicians involved, you get the public sentiment involved, and all too often you get this stagnation.
Yeah.
And we need to find ways to cut out stagnation so that the NHS or the healthcare system can get the funding it needs. We should be able to have enough oversight that the police can be proactive instead of reactive. A lot of it comes down to just countries have been going on the same way for so long, and the wheels of democracy and bureaucracy turn so slow that in order to adapt, they're adapting to something 20 years ago when we've already moved on from that. And I think that until we find the balance between all of those factors, we're not going to have the answers that we need, but we'll get the answers that we get. And that's not necessarily the right or wrong answer at this time.
Yeah.
If you get what I'm saying.
Oh, no, definitely. Like, it is going to be a collective thing. And I do feel as if society as a whole is moving in the right direction. It's just, is it moving fast enough for the way the world is going? That's where you need to ask the question.
Right. Yeah, I agree. But yeah, that's one of those things that it's one of those things that are on the one hand bigger than us, and we need infrastructure to be able to make that change.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, it's within our power, because if we elect leaders that can do our will, the changes that need to happen will happen.
Yeah.
So as we're running short on time, I think we're gonna skip game news and releases this week and jump straight into the happy ending so that we can kind of end on a high note. This is our first episode. We're kind of feeling things out. Next week I don't think we'll have we'll have big topics, but I think we'll have a little more feel how we talk. So we're gonna jump to the happy ending.
You want happy ending?
Okay.
Okay.
These pipes are clean.
Oh, I love that transition. So, for those of you that are new to the podcast, which all of you are, the happy ending is how Chris and I have decided to end on a high note. We each take a short, brief little topic, kind of describe to you a happy story that we found or came across, give a quick thought on it. We'll then plug our bullshit, and then we'll get you out of here. So, Chris, you first. Your happy ending, my buddy.
Well, it was a bit of a kind of rough one to try and actually find something that just seemed to kind of tug on the heartstrings. And the weirdest thing about this story is that it actually comes from Nike, the actual like sportswear brand maker
Okay.
that everybody a couple of years ago absolutely hated. And what
Yeah,
it was
right.
is the news story that came out is how they've made a hands-free shoe for arthritic, disabled, and pregnant people to easily slip on.
Yes.
So as I was actually reading it, and this made it actually even and better, is that it's called the Fly Ease Go. It's
Okay.
the first totally hands-free shoe, enveloping and releasing your feet solely through natural motion, a bit like Tony Stark putting on his Iron Man suit. That is
Right.
what they go with. So straight away, I was sold. But they do kind of thing me in a bit more. The thing is like a top Nike designer said it's for pregnant women in their third trimester, arthritis patients, or those that have lost some or all the use of their arms, such as stroke victims or injured military veterans. And the more and more that went on, I was like, well, that's such a great thing. I'd love to know the kind of background as to why now. And this is where it kind of hit. It just shows you that these major companies that everybody always like blames for so much that goes on, like during the pandemic, like you said earlier on with the pandemic and that kind of stuff, it didn't hit the likes of Walmart and Amazon and stuff like that. And but you people don't realize in the background that there's a lot of things that do. And the reason why Nike made this is it says uh, Toby Hartfield recounted the story of how in 2008 the world's largest athletic shoe and sportswear company received the unfortunate news that their very first employee had suffered a stroke and could no longer use one of his arms. They were then
Right.
put in charge of designing a special shoe to accommodate one of their most treasured staff members and came up with the one involving a zipper and Velcro. So basically, this conglomerate created a shoe based on the fact that their very first employee couldn't use his arm anymore due to
Right.
having a stroke. So this whole mentality that these big companies do not care, this should be enough to go, well, they do actually care. They care about their own, they care about the people that actually help them, work for them, work with them, and stuff like that.
Some of them do, for sure.
Yeah, and I just thought when it kind of they go on about it and kind of explain the shoe and stuff like that, and it was just one of those stories that I was reading, and I thought it's such an amazing thing to see that like there's so many people that can come under, and that have not been able to have a kind of like something that people like us can take for granted so easily, that
Yep.
putting on a shoe. And
It's hard for me.
yeah, exactly. So it kind of opens up your eyes that wee bit more to kind of go, well, something as simple as that can be something so difficult for somebody else. And this company seen that and thought, we're going to put money into making sure that a very small, like, it's not a big demographic, but they still made it for that demographic.
Right.
It's like this company has put money into doing something for a small demographic that will make the world of difference to these people. And it's just, me personally, I thought it was just a great feel-good story all round to kind of end on.
Yeah, it is. When I saw it in the document, I looked into it, and seeing an innovation like that, it does give me hope that not every corporation is a black-hearted fucking soul-sucking demon. Because one of my best friends growing up, still to this day, he's wheelchair bound due to CP. He can't walk. He's got to be picked up, go to toilet, all that. Got to put his shoes on. He's got to have people do it for him. Me personally, my right hand doesn't work tying shoes. Hard as fuck. The fact that they designed a shoe that's easy on, easy off for people with arthritis or like pregnant women especially who... Do you know how embarrassing it is for some women to not be able to tie their shoes because they're pregnant. Like I've known a lot of women who are pregnant, and I've helped a lot of them. The littlest thing of not being able to tie their own shoes it makes them feel horrendous. Yeah. So an innovation like this that makes a shoe, something simple, just a shoe to put on, put off, that they can do themselves with no assistance, gives them another sense of agency. It gives them part of their identity back, their own personal power. Not just the pregnant women, but the arthritis patients, the guys like me who have literally one hand. Like you said, it's the littlest thing, but it's so empowering. And to have a mega corporation like Nike, who's all about the profit, because they have factories in Indonesia where they pay their kids 10 cents an hour to make your $190 fucking shoes, can make a shoe that people with disabilities can put on easy. Now here's the caveat that I'm gonna say this. It's a great story, but let's not get it twisted. They're gonna sell those shoes for like $90.
Oh well, it does actually stay in the news story. I think.
Does it? I didn't see a price. So
it'll be released in a slow rollout this year, starting at $120. But
come on,
again, what you have to remember is $120 for a Nike shoe. I mean, it's still a Nike design. It's still got the name. It's still got the thymine and all that kind of stuff. Like, I can't it's Nike's never been a company that I've really went out my way to buy, because I've just always thought, my mindset is a shoe's a shoe. If it does its job, if it's £7, if it's £70, it's things like that. But for the sake of $120 in my mind, if something as simple as that, $120 is nothing if it means that you're able to put on and off a shoe without making it feel thymine. And it is one of those ones that, especially for Nike, $120 for their shoe, you know it's well made, you know it's going to last. It's $120 that could easily last you 3-4 years. So I think in this instance, it's one of the few times where I would say the price kind of, as much as it's a bit much steep for what I would pay for a shoe, I think it is a decent pay price for a Nike design for what it would be used for, especially when you think that it's a complete new design in how it works. And you have to remember that there is still people there that deserve to be paid for the work.
Yeah, but again, like I said, I have mixed feelings about it, because you can get a quality shoe and not pay $120 for it. You know, and I just think that because it's Nike and it's a brand and it's premium, they could afford to offer this shoe at a lower price point. If they really want to do goodwill, you can still offer it at a lower price point and make money.
Oh, definitely.
It's a great thing. I love the story. It's a brilliant story, but yet there's still that corporate stuff where you're like, you were there. You had the right thing, but just that bring the price point down, and you got to
get me wrong. What you have to remember is this isn't Nike that's came out and said that it's going to be $120. This is what this news story is. Okay. So we can't really make, like, as for all we know, they could be turning around and go like, if you want to buy this shoe yourself, it's me. But for people that have the disability or this or that, if you reach out to us, we will accommodate.
Yeah, that would
there's
be
a
nice.
lot of the kind of background stuff that we don't actually know. So I wouldn't like to I wouldn't like to kind of attack Nike or anybody else involved in this to before the kind of all the story comes out.
Right, and I'm not. I'm just saying that, like, I mean, it's a great story. I love the fact that Nike took the time to do something for their employee. It's brilliant. Yeah. And I guess I'm voicing my fear that they have this great product and there's this amazing sentiment behind it. Don't cock it up. Don't cock it up. Do it right.
I can understand where you would come from, because like these big companies haven't kind of gave people the confidence that they'll come out for the working man. Like,
Right.
so, like, I completely, like, your argument is completely justified. Like, I wouldn't think of that. So
Right,
it's
and
just,
that was my point.
and a kind of a big thing. I would like to see more come out of it before
Yes.
I start putting it, because even going with that, the shoe could be completely useless.
Right, 100%, 100%.
So I would like to at least have a bit more. I mean, this story was made on the 4th of February, so you're literally talking 5 days
Yeah,
that
I
this is
definitely
kind of been
want to keep an
announced.
eye on it
So,
for sure.
oh,
I
definitely.
definitely want to see where it goes, and I love the fact that Nike did it for their guy, right?
Yeah,
This is the guy. He rode with us. He died with us. He was there for us. Let's do something for this guy. He bled for the brand, right?
yeah,
Let's do right by him. I just want them to do right by him and everybody else, and that's why I want to keep an eye on us. And when I read the story, that was I love the story and the way you brought it up and the way you pitched it. Like I said, I couldn't shake that. Don't cock it up. Don't cock it up. That's all I'm saying. Because you're there. It's amazing. It's the right move. It's a brilliant innovation. Don't fuck it up, man. Because you can get so much goodwill from this. You can help so many people. So many people would feel empowered. This is the right move. Don't cock it up, Nike. Don't cock it up. Because you're right there. You gotta win. Bring it home. That's all I'm saying. I definitely want to keep my eyes on it. It's great.
yeah.
Excellent happy ending. Great story. I'm really glad that you brought that up. Now, mine is more on a cultural level. I posted that in 40 years, for the first time in 40 years, the Historical Museum of Pompeii is now reopened.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, for those of you in chat that might not know, or you're going through history or whatever, I don't know who's all here. I don't pay attention to the view count. Pompeii was a city in was a city in Italy that was buried by Mount Vesuvius. Just woof, wiped off the map. Just buried, just gone, obliterated, right? And their cultural heritage of that museum wasn't completely buried, right? But an earthquake caused significant damage to the museum, which caused it to be shut down. And a lot of the citizens of Pompeii lost access to their culture. And a lot of times culture is learned through going to a museum. Like in Scotland, you got castles and you got shit like that tells you the history of your country. Over here in America, we've got museums in our cities, our city history, our nation's history. When you are denied access to your history, your cultural heritage, your cultural identity, it leaves a hole. And the fact that just recently the Pompeii Art Museum has been renovated completely to the fact that it can now be reopened to the public gives those that next generation of Pompeians or people of Pompeii or the surrounding areas, those families that had their roots in Pompeii can now go back and see where those roots stem from. They can see the articles. They can see the history of their heritage for the first time in 40 years. 40 years is a generation. Because a generation technically is considered 36 years. Biologically, a generation is clocked at 36 years. So you have a generation that had no access, first-hand access, let me clarify, to their cultural heritage. And now they do. And it's amazing that the work they did restoring it, the exhibits, I looked a little bit into some of the stuff when I found the article. It's amazing because I love museums. I love history. I love heritage. I love culture. I love learning about that stuff. And to think that I couldn't go to the museums that I went to as a kid and learn the stories and see the artifacts and look at where I'm descended from, I couldn't imagine it. I couldn't imagine not being able to connect with my cultural heritage in a way. And I'm not one of these guys who's like, yo, Irish pride, baby. Or, Native American First Nation, blah, blah, blah. I'm not one of those guys, right? And if you are, you are. I'm not bagging on you. I'm not taking shots. But some of you need to settle the fuck down with that shit. Calm the fuck down. But I did. I went to museums constantly as a kid, and I learned everything I could. And to not have access to that would definitely make me feel like I missed out on something. It would make me feel less of an identifying. A lot of my grounding comes from where I grew up. You know, salt of the earth, Midwest, you know, beer country, steel working, you know, all that shit. I'm not those things. I'm a tech guy. But I have that work ethic, and I learned about it from going to these exhibits and handling these artifacts. And to not have access to it would have definitely deprived not only myself but my children of a unique experience. And to see that Pompeii is finally reopened and those lost generations can connect, it made me smile. It made me smile for the history nerd in me. It made me smile for the fact that people who lost their heritage for so long can reconnect with it on a level and maybe grow a little closer to their older generation. Because I got an affection for the older generation by seeing their struggle, hearing the stories, looking at the equipment compared to what I had. My grandfather didn't have a webcam. My grandfather didn't have a laptop or a fucking smartphone. I do. But I got to see what he had to work with. I got to learn of his experience not only through him, but through seeing artifacts of his time and going to a museum and talking to experts and being able to actually connect with those artifacts and those stories. So I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I looked it up just after, like I'd read you'd actually said it, and it was the first time I'd actually heard of the kind. I mean, I've learned about the Mount Vesuvius and the Pompeii disaster and stuff like that, but when I was actually reading this story, like you talked about how in 1980 the earthquake had hit, and for 36 years it's remained unopened. And then 2016, they opened it up the centre with the temporary stuff. And then now that's them starting to reopen it as a thing. But one of the other things that just added to this story was that it literally says the building was seriously damaged in 1943 by bombing during World War II. And they managed to reopen it after 5 years. And then it was opened up until 1980 when the earthquake hit. This building has been a constant, not an issue, but they've constantly had to redo work that they'd done before and stuff like that. And considering what the story of Pompeii back in, was it 79 AD?
Yeah, I think so.
And the eruption in Mount Vesuvius. So it just seemed to captivate what is Pompeii, that these things happened, and no matter what, they rebuilt, and that was it. And it's just the fact that they've got new artifacts and stuff like that as well, and just to see, like or listen to you kind of explain just how important it must be to these people that are now getting to be able to see their kind of their heritage, their history, these artifacts that people from thousands of years ago used and kind of made them who they were. And it is, and as you said, it's like, I mean, being Scottish, it's like it's a deep heritage for us. Especially, it's like with our history and everything about it. I would hate to have the thought that could all have been taken away. That for a generation you wouldn't have learned about the history of your people and stuff like that. And I think it is a great, it's a beautiful thing to hear that after so long, these artifacts and people are, it's almost as if they've been finally taken home to where it should be,
Yeah, I thought it was a really interesting story. The history that they kind of laid out of the museum, like you said, like it's the fucking World War II bombing and the earthquake. It's this this museum, this cultural icon has been constantly having to be rebuilt, constantly having to be worked on. It just speaks to the resilience and the importance of having those cultural touchstones, so much so that they rebuilt it again
Yeah.
and again and again and again and again, just so that the next generation could have that callback and have that connection to what came before them. Because all too often nowadays we live in a disposable society. Oh, your cell phone dies after 2 years. Oh, get a fucking new one. Your bag's in the bin. Toss that shit out. Get a new one. Your sneakers. A year later, they fall apart. Go buy new ones.
Yeah.
Bro, back then they didn't get sneakers, bro. You had that shit's made. You got one.
Even
maybe-
at that, you might have no had
Yeah.
any. Like,
But we live in such a disposable society and a culture that no longer, and I'm generalizing, so don't come at me, no longer values permanency. We have planned obsolescence. We have disposable culture. Oh, you don't want to raise the cow and slaughter it yourself and cure it? Go to the supermarket, pick up a side of beef, toss it out when you're done.
Mhm.
Oh, you don't want to do that? There's a Mickey Donald's on the corner. Go get yourself a Big Mac for 99 cents.
yeah, the world is definitely it's more about convenience than anything else. That's where it's kind of came to, is that everything has to be at your beck and call. So you think of like 24-hour stores, 24-hour restaurants, delivery service. It's a constant convenience kind of, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be all bad. Like,
No, it doesn't.
we should be in a place where we're making living as easy as possible and it's as convenient as possible. So I definitely agree that there is a small percentage that just don't understand how it's supposed to be. But at the same time, I don't think you can blame them fully. That
No, you
the
can't.
world and society nowadays is just, it's convenience. So you can't blame someone that's taking advantage of that. But it just goes to show that the world is moving along to kind of suit.
I think to your point is you can't necessarily blame them, but what needs to happen is there needs to be a review of best practices in that convenience.
Oh, definitely.
We need to review what the cost of convenience is.
Yeah.
What are we sacrificing for said convenience? Like,
Yeah.
there was a report that came out 5 years ago done by Harvard Medical that said humans have lost the ability to memorize what we could have memorized hundreds of years ago. Back in ancient Greece, people memorized 5,000 pages or more of literature, oral history, performance. Nowadays, kids can't memorize 7 fucking digits on a phone.
Yeah.
Is that the kid's fault? Or is that society's fault because technology has made it to where we don't need to memorize 5,000 pages of literature?
I think in my eyes is that it's not so much society or the child's fault or to blame.
Right.
I think it's more that 1,000 years ago, people were able to kind of memorize this and that. And now it's not that they don't, it's that they don't need to. But it's my question would be is, we're at a point where you do not need to memorize 5,000 pages of literature because you can look it up on your phone. But we should then be using that free space of your mind for something else that we don't have the convenience of. The problem that there is that if it's not convenient, people don't want to like be a part of it. Whereas back then, if it was inconvenient, you worked on it. You made it convenient. We're now at a point where people don't want to create things that are convenient, because if it's not already convenient, why would they be bothered about it?
Facts.
And there's very few people that are actually going, right, well, like when you were talking about what's the cost of the kind of like the convenience, so, it's things like when you go to like certain stores, like especially in Japan, but I can't remember if it was Japan or if it was somewhere else, but it was a picture that I'd seen, and what was happening is they'd taken an orange, taken the rind off the orange, placed it in a plastic container, and were selling it as convenient oranges, because if only an orange came within its own packaging.
I saw that
And
photo.
that
It
is
was
where
Japan.
it's like,
It was
that
Japan.
is just too far in the convenience of people can't even just peel an orange. Now you've created all this plastic that was not needed. You did not necessarily need that to house an orange, because you decided to take it off its natural packaging.
Yeah.
Like, that is just completely insane to me. And that's where I think the problem stems in it, is that convenience has its place if you're going to work on what is not convenient. And that kind of then touches back on the Nike kind of thing, is that there was an inconvenience and they have worked on it to make sure that that is no longer an inconvenience. But there's so much that is still basic things that nobody wants to work on because they don't think it's an inconvenience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to bring it back to Pompeii, part of the reason that I think the museum reopening and the cultural aspirations of being able to reconnect is, without those touchstones and the journey, we can lose ourselves to convenience. We can lose ourselves to, well, it's here now. Why do I care?
Yeah.
And something as monumental of staying and rebuilding the Pompeii Antiquarium so that people can go back and look at it. It just touches that everything we have now, we stand on the shoulders of giants. And everything that will come, they stand on our shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't have that... Oh my, as I go all weird on me. Hang on. There we go. My chroma key kind of weirded out for a minute there. But if we lose our base, there's nothing to build.
Yeah.
You can't have convenience without struggle. You can't have success without failure. You can't have life without death, and you can't have progress without loss. And for Pompeii to be like, we get it. We will rebuild it, and it will be greater. Harkens back to, we ain't nothing without a foundation. And now they have a foundation again. And yeah, you could say, oh, Docs, well, they could Google their history and blah, blah, blah.
But there's nothing like being... you can't see or gather the essence that history kind of is. I mean, I'm similar. I love going to I always went to the museums. Anytime I go to a new city or a new country, the first thing I look for is the National Museum, because I want to see the history, because the history is what made these people or this city or this country or this culture what it is. And you'll never be able to understand the culture of a country unless you look at their history, because the society that is represented now is a far different reach from what their culture is. And that's why I think it's so important to have the likes of this Pompeii Museum or any other museum, and that people need to start touching back on their roots, start seeing, don't just read about your history, go and see your history, go and learn about your history, because the history of you is what made you.
Yep.
It might not just be you personally, but it would have made you, like you said about being a Wisconsin boy and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
The
And-
history of that area is so different, even though it's still part of the same country. It's so different from other parts of the United States. Like you look at Scotland, England, and Wales, and how different our cultures are, even though we share an island.
Yep.
And you're like, but there's not enough people that go and see that history. Just go outside and just breathe it in.
Experience it. Yep.
Yeah.
And I'll add a final caveat to that. Learn all your history.
Mm-hmm.
Learn the dirty, dark shit that makes you uncomfortable. Don't just learn about the achievements. Don't just learn about, oh, we built this, we did that. Learn about the Trail of Tears. Learn about the fucking Tulsa massacre that occurred here in the States. Learn about the Klan. Learn about the rise of Hitler. Learn about the English occupation of Scotland. Don't shy away from that. Because when you shy away from it, you don't learn the lessons that history can teach you.
Yeah.
And when you deny stuff that makes you uncomfortable, and when you deny the dark side, when you deny looking at the bad shit, you do yourself a disservice, because you're going to fall into the same traps that those people that went down that dark road did. And like you said, I mean, touching to those cultural touchstones, good or bad, needs to happen more than they are in this century. So
the extra little bit I would add to that is also look at everyone's history. Because you can learn so much of other people hearing about their history. And because, like, I think that's one of the things with it is, if you're focused on the good parts of your history and then you hear of someone else's history and discover that you had bad parts of your history, if you don't know those histories, you're not going to be able to defend. But if you know that your history did have, everybody's history had its dark times.
Everyone's.
But without understanding them, you will not be able to understand someone else. And I think learning all history, I mean, it's a lot of history, but at least being able to understand that someone might be upset in a certain thing because it happened. Just because you didn't read about it or you deny it doesn't mean it did not happen.
Facts.
And I think
100%.
that is something that is just how important history is in learning it.
There's a saying, and it holds true to this day. Those who fail to learn the lessons of history are doomed to repeat it.
Yeah, completely agree.
All right, man. I think that's our time. I think that was a great happy ending section. I appreciate it. What we're gonna do now, for those of you that are sticking around, we're gonna sign off. We're gonna shill our shit. We're gonna end this stream on my channel so that I can log it as a vlog and then run it as a rerun later. And then I'm gonna jump back on for like another 2 hours, probably play League of Legends or just bullshit or whatever, and just finish out the night. I appreciate everybody who came in. I appreciate everybody who shared their opinions with us, their thoughts, their comments. Yes, we addressed them either in chat or we addressed them and whatnot. This is our first episode. Please feel free to get at us on Twitter. Tell us your feedback. Let us know what you like, what you didn't like, what you think worked, what didn't work. But be constructive. Because if you're just going to troll, we ain't going to pay attention to your ass. Because
don't just shit all over it. Because if you shit all over it, you're just going to have an angry grunt Scotsman that's just going to commit you. That's it.
You have a pissed off gray-haired white boy. And you don't want that. So, Chris, tell them who you are, where they can find you, and what you got coming up.
Well, I'm Chris. You can hopefully soon find me on Twitch myself with these podcasts and stuff like that. You can find me on Twitter, which is at ChrisC90, and that's kind of the only place where I kind of hang around. So
that's not true. You're in Star Wars, baby. That's coming back next week.
Oh well, I will be in Star Wars. You'll find me on Dox's streams quite often. In different roles and trying to get involved in TTRPG, even though I'm still learning the ropes.
You're fine. You're doing great. Yeah, but definitely follow Chris on Twitter. Follow him on his Twitch channel. He's just starting out on the journey. We're gonna get him set up. We'll get his shit rocking. Follow him for future streams. He'll be hosting the podcast on his channel as much as I. So if you want to bounce between the two channels, feel free. Chris is a good dude. I'm so glad to have met him. The podcast was his idea. I'm so glad he brought it to me as something he feels that we had a good chemistry, and I've really enjoyed our chemistry and our friendship so far, and it means a lot that you kind of brought me in on this. So thank you for that, Chris.
No, definitely.
I am who I am. I'm Dox Ryan. You can find me 4, 5, 6, 7 nights a week sometimes, right here. Mostly 7 to midnight. Sometimes I'm early, sometimes I'm late, sometimes I am what I am. Follow me on the Twitter at Dox Ryan, because that's where you're gonna get the information. I'm pretty good at tweeting out if I'm not gonna stream. I always do a going live stream, so you know what we're doing for that night, whether we stick to that plan. But at least I give you a shot. So we appreciate you being here. The podcast airs every Monday night, 7 Central. There will be Sunday morning episodes to kind of put it easier on Chris. And when we do incorporate guests, we do have guests lined up from the UK, from other parts of the world. So we will accommodate them by maybe going live on a Sunday morning to make it easier for those guests and to make it easier for Chris. Though we will make sure it is rerun in the evening on a Monday night or later after my streams on Monday night. So you will have the podcast on Monday nights, even if we do a Sunday show. And in the next couple, like in the next week or so, I'm going to download the video and strip the audio out so that you can then download the audio version of the podcast from a Google Drive that we're going to set up and that we'll blow out. If you want the Google Drive link, DM us on Twitch or Twitter. We'll shoot you the link because I don't want to blast it out on Twitter like right now. We kind of want to do word of mouth, and then once we get hosted on like Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever we get that set up down the road, we'll shoot those links out. So I just want to thank Chris for being here and making a hella good points tonight, sharing some interesting perspective, and you guys for showing up and paying attention. We're going to end the stream. I will be back in about 10 minutes. I'm going to go upstairs, get something to drink because I finished my mead. If you could probably tell, I'm a little, ooh, yeah, boy. And then we'll probably play games for another hour or two. Then I got to hit the rack. So, Chris, say goodbye.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming, show support, and Docs, thanks to you for agreeing to come on and try and wrangle whatever this is.
Hey, bro, you're not hard to wrangle, bro. You're a smart dude. You're eloquent in your own Scottish way. And, you know, you make good points, man. I think we got good chemistry. You've got a perspective that I appreciate and I respect, and it's different from mine. And I think if we just keep doing what we're doing, this is going to be something I look forward to definitely next week.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, everybody.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
We're out. Have a good night.